Good evening, and welcome to the Putnam Valley Board of Education Work Session Business Meeting of October 8th, 2020. Please stand and join me as we salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So for the first order of business, I'd like to resolve to approve the minutes for the business meeting of September 24th.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Now, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Luft for our favorite thing of the month, Pride in Putnam Valley.
Thank you. So for this month, I wanted to recognize one specific person, but obviously members of the department as well. I did invite him to attend this evening, but I know he begins working before 6 o'clock in the morning, so I told him I would totally understand if he did not want to physically come to the meeting. But we don't typically recognize individuals for sort of doing their job that they're hired to do. But for anyone who knows Mike Koenig, I think correctly pronounced Koenig, knows that he doesn't just do his job, he does like 6 other jobs on top of it. So I thought he was the right person to be recognized for Pride in PV this month. Just to talk a little bit about what our summer was like and what the transportation department, under the leadership of Dave and Mike and certainly Lori Cara, we were changing our buses, our number of buses, our routes, our drivers, and our times leading up to the last week of school before opening. And then right after they were done that monumental task in a few days, then we broke it to them that we were going to need them to assign seats for every one of those students. So they begrudgingly figured out a way within a day or two to assign seats to every student who was scheduled to be on their buses. And then we mentioned that, by the way, those buses needed to be disinfected every day. So we obviously don't have staffing to do that. So Mike himself comes in each morning at 6 o'clock in the morning and disinfects every one of our buses and every one of Orange County Transit's buses. So that just speaks to the type of person that Mike is. He's always willing to do anything that is asked of him. Those skills transcend transportation, whether we're asking him to help put up tents or promptly take tents back down. We ask him to jump in and drive a bus whenever it's needed. We ask him to fix a bus whenever it's needed. And as I mentioned before, we ask him to clean a bus every day. So I do want to recognize Mike and certainly Lori and all the members of the transportation department. I think the opening of this school year, with all of the unknowns and the race to get schools open and changes happening at the last minute, it was probably the smoothest opening transportation-wise that I think we've had in recent years. So I'll read his certificate and then I'll hand it over to his supervisor, Mr. Spittle. So it says, the Putnam Valley Central School District proudly presents Pride in Putnam Valley to Michael Koenig for his commitment and guidance in the transportation department, which ensures the safety and well-being of the district students every day. So we'll do a round of applause and I'll give his certificate over to Dave. Thank you.
And Dr. Luft, you mentioned begrudging, but Mike Koenig's begrudging and my begrudging, for example, is a very different begrudging. It's more of a, oh, we have to do that now? All right.
I think his exact words are you serious?
Okay, but then immediately followed by, all right, we'll make it work. It's just, it's commendable, and, you know, people are scared to send their children to school because school's unknown, but they're terrified about putting their children on a wheeling vehicle with a stranger. And I know that I can feel confident knowing that with Mike in charge, all of our kids are safe. So thank him very, very much. Okay. We get to hear from Mike's boss now? Mike's supervisor?
So our first presentation this evening will be Mr. Spittle, our Director of Facilities and Operations and Transportation, and he's going to provide us a report on the opening of schools with some sneak previews or recaps of our construction project. So welcome, Mr. Spittle.
Good evening. I'd first like to say, last board meeting, our custodial staff was recognized with Pride in Putnam Valley, and this board meeting, and wonderful things were said, and I second all of them, and I tell them all every day what a great job they're doing. And this one with Mike, well-deserved, and all the kind words are well-deserved. I love Mike. He does take care of our district like it's his baby and our children. Lately, I've been hearing a lot, pride in Putnam Valley, but how proud people are of Putnam Valley. Our opening of school was a feat that was accomplished by everyone, and our successful opening was it wasn't, of course, Michael and our team and all that, but it was everybody, top to bottom, including students, faculty, teachers, administrators, great leadership, and really just want to say how proud I am to be part of this organization. So try to collect myself and do my presentation. So this is the facilities report. The highlights are our COVID-19 response, and then the construction projects of the middle school, wellness center, and elementary school. On March 16th, 2020, the Putnam Valley Central School District closed its doors to students and faculty as the COVID-19 pandemic forced New York State into a lockdown. But essential work here still needed to be done. And here are the essential workers that were here on March 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, and every day through today. This is the staff: Brian Mansfield, Ron Langdon, Jason Gibbs, Brian Gibbons, Janet, Becky, I'm not going to try to pronounce those, Rich Mansfield, Eric Hill, Justin Jameson, and of course Michael Koenig, Donna Yerkes, Lori Cara. At the elementary school, Ray Renzo, Ralph Neese, Carl Dinesco, Martin Shella, John Boniello, Albert Gochak, I don't know about that one either, and ground Scott Stevens, James Constable, and Nick Ivazaz. So in the spring, when everything closed down, nobody blinked, nobody asked, are we coming to work, Dave? They just showed up here. And the first task was to deep clean every building in the district. It took about 2 weeks to clean and seal off all the classrooms and everything. At that time, we really didn't know what we know now about how the COVID-19 is spread. Surface transmission seemed to be a thing, and we learned more as we went. But so we started with that, the deep cleaning. But then, we started planning before the shutdown to make sure that our free and reduced lunch students were fed. It's an economic crisis as well, and a lot of essential workers had difficult times, providing meals for their children. So we closed on the 16th. On the 17th, we delivered 140 meals to students in our district. The Aramark team came in. Whoops, where are they? There they are. The Aramark team really, I got my hats off to them. They were here every day. This is under Sandra Rankin's leadership. She's not in this picture, which she told me she was grateful for. But this is the team that came in every day and packed all those lunches, and were prepared to do it the day after we closed. And then they didn't have enough manpower to run these new systems of tagging, putting labels and everything on, and packing the lunches. So of course, our custodial staff didn't blink and stepped up to help us pack and staple the meals closed and pack them up. And then there's Mr. Koenig in the front. He was there delivering meals along with Lori and Donna. they would go out every day and deliver around town all these meals to folks. And of course, we did have this little item of this $15 million construction project that we needed to keep going. And they were all essential to make sure that the buildings were open. And this project kept moving so that we could get it done and take advantage of the close down. And I'll get more onto the construction later. Then actually before the summer, I know that it said summer there, but we started to prepare for the reopening. We didn't know when that was going to be. We were hoping it would be in September, hoping it would be sooner, but as it turns out. So this picture here was taken on April 16th. So we started looking at how we were going to reconfigure our classrooms for social distancing before it was really a thing. And because we started really investigating how this infection was transmitting and what we needed to do to stop it. So we had a feeling that we weren't going to have classrooms set up like they used to be. So that was our first socially distanced classroom to try to figure out the capacity of our district. And then we had to get ready to accomplish the disinfecting as we opened. And I was asked by the Board of Education last time I gave a presentation, can you do this with the staff you have? Jeanette Yetter asked that question. So, and I was like, oh, yes, we can. In order to do that, we needed to leverage the staff we had, and we're using technology basically to increase their productivity. And one thing we found back in March was these electrostatic sprayers really helped. What they do, just to give you a quick background, I won't go on all night here, is they take the Corona killer and liquid, and they electrostatically charge the particles so that they want to stick to every grounded surface in the room. And then they also don't want to stick to each other, so it gives an even spread of the Corona killer. And rather than having to wipe in every surface to make sure that it was disinfected, they could actually spray it. It made them much more efficient in doing that. So I started ordering these back in March, even before the shutdown, and thank goodness, because some of them didn't come in until the third week in August. So we were able to be ahead of the game there. 3 different types we have. We have one that Jason is using here that is the Clorox 360. It's a pull cart behind. They can do areas like that and spray. Then we have this handheld, really cool thing that looks like, I don't know, it looks like a ray gun. From
like Star Trek.
Star
It looks
Trek,
like something
yeah.
from Star Trek.
So we use this one. It's very effective for the cleaning we need to do during the day. As it turns out, when we're disinfecting bathrooms and other frequently touched surfaces around the school continually, all day long, and this makes it so they can just have that and spray the handles and spray in bathrooms, and that's how we were able to accomplish what used to take half hour to clean a bathroom. To disinfect with this sprayer is just a few minutes. So that's, and then there's the Corona Killer robot. I named it that. This is a box that holds a lot of it, and we use this in larger areas like this, where you just plug the thing in, press a button, and then leave the room, and it electrostatically does the whole room. So we have one of these in every building. We have an array of these electrostatic sprayers around. I try to get a picture of it taking care of the pack, but we literally put it in that middle aisle, as you can see, and turn it on, and it does the whole pack. Ventilation is another big issue. I didn't know what kind of photo to take for ventilation. This is an ERU on the top of the middle school I took a picture of this morning. Ventilation, as it turns out, is one of the main reasons why Putnam Valley was able to open and other districts weren't. As you heard, I'm sure, that in Yonkers and in the city, a lot of schools, they don't have the sophisticated HVAC system that we have. We're able to, how ours works is we take in the outside air through these energy recovery units, or ERUs, that are on the roofs of our buildings. And thank goodness for the upgrades we've done in the last several years, and the vision of the board in previous years, and Paul Lee, to have a state-of-the-art HVAC system that allows us to control the amount of outside air that comes in to the buildings, and so that we could, we went from about 10% outside air. We were able to open these ERUs and drag 30 to 40% fresh air, or outside air, into the buildings. That's how we're ventilated. We augment that with, of course, they can open windows and such, but that's why we can open, because we can get this, we can have confidence that our rooms, every room in the building is getting this outside air in. PPE, this is my office. This has turned into a PPE warehouse. PPE was very difficult to procure, and we've been working hard with my office staff. Mary and Jean have been instrumental in helping us find different sourcing for PPE. You can see that N95 up front there, those came in last week. We ordered those in March. But everything else, we have a full complement of PPE, from face shields to N95s to masks for people who don't have them, to gloves, which aren't as much of a thing anymore, but we have 20,000 gloves. So anyway, so we have we have PPE in great quantities, and enough we'll have enough to get us through the school year. We have orders behind these. You know, this is something I've been saying that you know, it was an accomplishment to get open, but and we're going to, there's a good chance we'll end up closing, and that'll be out of our control. That's because of things in the area, but every day we have students here is a victory. So a few pictures here. The middle school construction project. After this presentation, I have a time lapse of a courtyard of this. You can see how it's gone. But right now, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Right now, the middle school, we're still waiting on that canopy out front and some odds and ends to be taken care of there. We did get a head start because of the shutdown and turning over the space to the construction folks well ahead of when we thought we would, but that was offset by the supply chain problems and manufacturing problems and office closed downs, and basically every company in the country has been disrupted, and makes it very difficult for us to get materials. We had to switch suppliers and things. So that slowed us down somewhat. But we are proud that we got open. Besides getting school open for the students, we got the middle school open for the students with not much time to spare. I had the fire inspector in there on Monday of Labor Day, and I was on my hands and knees scrubbing some glue off the floor at 3 o'clock on Labor Day. So
Looked questionable in August.
We got it done though. So, but now we're tightening up these odds and ends every day, and we're going to have. I wish that it was done so I could show you a beautiful picture of the school with windows and the canopy and everything. But we'll have this middle school completed by November 15th, right, Jeremy?
Round it up.
Is he being an eternal optimist again?
No, it better be.
There's deadlines. It's just whether or not we meet the
serious
deadline. It's TBD.
This is, if any of you have seen it, this is the new servery in the kitchen back there. It's beautiful new space that we have. The pictures don't really do it justice. Seeing it in person, really, it's coming out. You know, our vision that took, you know, teams of people, you know, 2 years to come up with is finally coming to fruition here, and it looks great. I saw a kid walk in I think it was like the first day, and he like this little kid was walking behind him down the hallway, and he turned the corner and saw the space, and his hands went up. It's like, oh my God, yes, this place looks great. It made my year. So there's another picture of the Learning Commons. And here's a picture I took this morning of the Wellness Center with the sun rising there. This Wellness Center is a little bit, well, it's our completion date is supposed to be January 1st. I believe we will hit that. We had some hiccups with the manufacturer delivering the wrong color roof and a few other things, but we're making, you can see now we're starting to make some serious progress, and we should have it closed in by the end of November, and then we'll work on the inside. Now the elementary school, the makerspace, I think this room came out beautiful. It looks great. I'm really happy with the results here. Almost done. I think Liz Bross was trying to figure out how to do a virtual lesson from here starting today. So we're moving in there, and it's going to, and my goodness, when this is all over, you know, to have this beautiful makerspace is going to be great facility for the students of the elementary school. The other thing I don't have a good picture of, because frankly there wasn't a good picture, is the auditorium at the elementary school is being redone, and it looks great. What you don't see is we're also going to have air conditioning in there. And now it's going to work just in time for the cold weather. So,
Perfect.
you know, yeah, perfect. But next spring, we'll appreciate it. And then, Dan, can you help me, or someone help me get to the time-lapse video? I don't know how to do that. Okay. Yeah, I don't care. Okay. Okay, so it's only 2 minutes long. A lot happened in 2 minutes. Can happen.
I like
in 2
that the
minutes.
big wet mud spot is still there.
So this is the time lapse. We set this up last year,
Wow.
and now there's going to be a point here where I'm going to get really frustrated again because nothing happens. So there's a lot of work underground here, you know, a lot of things like geothermal and water needed to move. So there's a lot of excavation being done on the front end here. And this foundation this is the place to go if we're in trouble. It's going to be about the strongest building I've ever seen. So this is where things,
Go awry.
well, the building got delayed a little bit.
At that point, they were ahead of schedule, so they needed to wait and catch up.
Yeah, so
So
we were
it sort of
we were
just
ahead of
sits there
schedule.
for 30
Yeah.
sunrise sunsets.
Yeah, so this is where I'm getting aggravated again. So nothing happened for a
If
while.
you look close, every once in a while, you see Dave and I walk down there.
Yeah, that's right. I usually walk down to the corner down there.
And I
But-
noticed there's no sound, so we can't hear the words you're using.
That's good.
Nobody wants to hear
Did
that.
not want to be caught at this point.
And then like in 1 second, the whole building will just pop up.
Yeah, we're almost there. See, this is agonizing.
Right. But
Was
things
it
are being
agonizing
delivered, I
in
can
real
see
life?
the things being covered, so. But yeah, even the gate's not being opened either.
Nope, nothing's happening. Oh, here we go. Boom.
Well, it did go up in the course of like 3 days.
Yeah.
See, there you go.
It's like an
And
erect.
then it sits again.
This is very, very fancy.
But just wild is how low the sun is in the sky now. The shadows are very different.
I'm just watching how much weeds grow on top of the tarp.
Yeah,
You can watch the
noticing
weeds
that
grow
too.
in real time.
So there we go. That's where we are.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh,
So
that's
there's one
cool.
more I'll show you. I don't know, it's kind of, this one
Give me a
here.
headache.
It's the courtyard fill-in, and then I'm done. I've been asked to make this as brief as I could tonight, so. Dan, help me.
Yeah, you can't hit play on it.
Okay, so this is the courtyard at the middle school.
Stored hazmat suits.
Yeah, this is asbestos team in that removal team in there.
The theme of this video will be lots of water.
Save water?
Water.
Water.
Everywhere.
Water everywhere. But the really good news is all this work, a lot of this work we did, the basement at the middle school hasn't been dry in, I don't know, 50 years probably. And it's dry now. So it worked. See, we dug down near that foundation. Now you can see we sealed that up down there. Again, a lot of work underground. We had to move the water main that was in there out, and then we had to prepare for the new space with everything that needed to go underground, the conduit and roof drains and stormwater stuff and electric conduit and things like that had to go underground.
I'm having trouble picking paints for my
Well,
cabinets.
then we poured a concrete slab really quick.
Really fast.
That was impressive.
That's crazy.
Watch the roof just fall from the sky.
Yeah, so then we lost the camera pretty soon here, but we put it back up inside.
We should have told them to stop putting stuff in the way of our camera.
Yeah, see, that's what happened. See, look, they put a tarp in front of it for like 3 days. Then we got it. We didn't know. So now we're inside, and this is that room 151, the room up front there.
One thing that's consistent is that cooler.
That's true.
It's always in.
Yeah, it's always
Lunch is important.
Certainly is.
I guess it was hot too. So.
What
You can
is-
tell when they bump into the
What
camera,
is-
it stares at the ground for a couple of days.
Those glass doors are about 3 inches thick. They're not bulletproof, but they're soundproof.
Dave, we're going to need you for living history because I already walk in the middle school and cannot remember when it wasn't like this.
See, this is why
Yeah.
we did the
Right.
time lapse. So, that's it. So again, I'm really proud of this district and what we've accomplished here this spring and summer. And hopefully we can stay open. Every day's a victory. Any
Well
questions?
No.
No?
Just continue to add our thanks to your whole department. You
Thanks.
really do.
No, thanks to them. They do
You
it.
all operate like you're taking care of your homes,
Thank you.
and you feel it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I know we recognized Dave and his department, but I think from what we've seen here, even that doesn't do justice to the amount of work that our facilities and grounds staff was able to accomplish this year. So again, kudos to all of them. All right, our next presentation will be Mr. Burrow. He's going to give us an update on what is a very interesting start to the athletic season. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
That's a good word. Interesting.
Good to see everybody in person. It's been quite a while. So yes, it's been interesting, but again, we have a tremendous staff that's been helping, and anytime you call with any needs, it's been just great. And the bonus of having gone through this after everyone else, special ed, all 3 buildings, everything like that, is now they know what to do. So they just jumped on board and helped, which was nice. So the first thing I need to do is thank these 3 nurses. Without the support of these nurses who, mind you, are taking care of their own families, they're nervous for their own health and families, but they really doubled down, and without them we would not be in this position. And many of the districts, the surrounding districts that had struggles or have not been able to open, it is the result directly of not having a nurse or not quite having the wonderful nurses that we have. So they deserve quite a round of applause, I think.
Mrs. Hill asked if we can actually show the full video.
I didn't. I thought they would kill me just with the picture. Somebody's bound to tell them, and I'm going to get it tomorrow, but I didn't put the whole video on.
All right.
This went out to all the students and to try to make them a little bit more comfortable with the protocols on mask wearing and hand washing and things of that nature.
That's great.
Okay, this slide just quickly explains what the Department of Health put together as far as low, medium, and high risk athletics, and obviously they're all just slightly different. And as you work your way from lower to higher, there's more equipment shared and physical contact in the activity, basically. Just seems to be, oh, we froze. There we go. It seems to be one of the questions that pops up is who determined low, medium, and high, and that came to us from the Department of Health. So we put together a return to interscholastic athletic plan, and the 4 sports that we're allowed to operate at this point are girls soccer, girls and boys, varsity cross country, varsity field hockey, and boys soccer. We put this together with all of the same groups that special ed and the 3 buildings and all of our other administrators had to work with. The school physician, Department of Health. We have also the athletic governing bodies as well that we worked with, our school physician. I think I said that. We could say him twice. We called him a lot. So we just wanted, this went out to all of the parents and all of the athletes that are participating now as well. So always when you're participating in athletics, it's an extension of the educational facility, but it is different in ways. You know, you take on your inherent risk when you're going out there. It's kind of your own volition, whereas if we're talking about phys ed, you're being compelled to do something for a grade. Well, this is your own choice. You're going out there of your own free will. So you take on some of that responsibility and the risk. And we just wanted to make it clear that, you know, during this time, of course, you're taking on that risk of potentially putting yourself in a more, in a position where you may contract COVID-19 because it's outside, and you have to waive some of the rules. Not many. We tried to do as few as possible, but obviously you're in very close contact. So all of the personnel, of course, had to follow the same guidelines. And again, this is just something that we sent out to parents to assure them and hopefully make them a little bit more comfortable that we had everything lined up here. We say 6 feet apart, but of course that is very difficult when you're playing these activities. Face coverings is probably the biggest one. All of the people that will be in attendance will be in a mask. I think Jeremy mentioned in our recap a little earlier this evening that this was one of the biggest sticking points, not even sticking points, it was one of the most difficult things to get everyone aligned on. You have, when we're working within the buildings, it's us. We're working together, we know which way we want to go, but in athletics, you're trying to work with so many other districts, so many other communities. So to get all the superintendents and all the athletic directors on the same page it's near impossible at times. So one of these sticking points was face masks, and we were able to get Conference 3 and most of Section 1 all on board with wearing masks during play. We felt that it was the only way that we would be able to move forward, not only just to get athletics to run, but to get it to run in a way that mirrored all of the important protocols that we've put in place within school. Why would we put all of these in place if we think they're important and then roll out onto the field and then throw them away? So the number one goal for athletics is, of course, to not impact the educational facility in a negative way that it would shut down. So that was one of the things that we had to put in place. So everyone that attends will be in a mask, timekeeper, chaperones, trainer, and community members. Practices, we talk to the coaches a lot about how their practice should look, what they should do, just reminding them very basic things that they need to put in place as far as distancing and mask breaks and water breaks and just, bringing them up to their fitness level with the mask on is very, very important. We'll talk about that a little later. We have hand sanitizer out on the field in multiple spots. We have the spray bottles, thanks to Dave and his staff, in all the specific locations around the turf, the booth, the concession stand, so on and so forth. And the coaches, it's a team effort. The coaches are very, very important. And luckily, we're fortunate to have an incredible coaching staff for this season. I don't know what I would do if this staff wasn't just perfectly on board and implementing all of these procedures. We do have spare masks in the med kits. We also have spare masks within my office and the trainer's office. So if a student who typically has their own either loses it or sometimes they break or things like that, we have readily available good masks for them to wear. We were very fortunate. Jeremy spoke with the Putnam Valley Education Foundation, and they have decided to donate Putnam Valley Tiger masks for all of the athletes for the fall season. So hopefully those will arrive soon. That was very generous of them. We're talking here, this is about the screening. We're starting to get into the screening process. So obviously when the students are in the building, learning directly from the teacher, they go through the screening process in order to get onto campus. We also have to account for Monday, which is virtual, Saturday, obviously we don't have school, and then our 50% that are virtual on any given day. So we have them taking the screening, doing the screening before they arrive on campus. Dan has helped me out in creating a kind of a monitoring system that we can quickly glance and see who has and hasn't filled it out, and things are in place to get them to complete the screening. We spoke to the parents and athletes that they are required to bring their own water in labeled water bottles, much like they are throughout the other buildings. We have a bottle filling station outside by the turf. The bathrooms that are used at the turf are cleaned daily. It's recorded with the, right now it's on paper, but it'd be on the QR code scan system, which by the way is incredible that we put that together so quickly. It's very efficient. Yep, we're limiting the shared equipment. One of the bonuses of the sports that we're allowed to do right now is there is very little shared equipment. Soccer, obviously, you're primarily using your feet. Field hockey, you're hitting the ball around with the stick. Cross country, there's no shared equipment. So some of these things that you'll see here, we're lucky enough that that is removed, which I think was the whole idea, so that you can just see if this level will work. And one of the things that I've been talking to the coaches and families that may be upset that we're not playing other sports and things like that, is if we have to get this to work. This has to work properly, has to, without any hiccups. If we can do that, we'll probably be able to continue on and move forward with some of the other activities. But if we don't, if we run into any hiccups or anything, it's not going to play out very well when you're going to be increasing the contact. And they get it. I mean, it's very difficult for a parent and kids to not be able to do what they love to do, but they do understand, which is helpful. Let's see, we talked about the bathrooms a little bit. Inclement weather. If we have any poor weather where they have to stop practice or a game, if we're home, we have assigned bleachers for each of the 4 teams in the high school gym. That's the same place that they go right when dismissal occurs. So they'll go down and they are located in their specific bleacher, socially distanced, with masks. We have 2 hall monitors watching them and allowing them to one at a time go to the bathrooms, change, relax a second, do some homework, and then the coach comes and picks them up. If we run into any poor weather, they'll immediately come inside, go to their assigned bleacher that doesn't change, and practice will be over, and we'll send them on their way, either calling parents, or we do have one 5:30 bus. If they're at an away game, we've contacted the bus company and made sure that they're going to keep that bus on site so that the team can immediately retreat back to the bus. They probably won't be allowed in the opponent school building, right? So we have to keep that bus there in order to make sure that they have a safe place to retreat. And with the darkness, and most of the districts don't have lights like us, most likely, if we do have to retreat to the bus, that will be the end of the contest. Normally, they would wait it out X amount of time and then see if they could go again. Our trainer has been pretty instrumental as well with the nurses. We shifted her hours in the beginning of the school year in order to support our nurses a little bit more. Some of her certifications and things just allow her to see and be a part of some of the private health screening information. So it was very helpful that she was able to do that. Now she's back to her normal hour set, and she has a system in place for how the athletes go down to her and stay in socially distant line, and how they make appointments and so on and so forth. It's very nicely done, and we thank her for that. She offers a level of comfort to everybody down there, just in her level of expertise, and I think all of the coaches and students really lean on her, to knowing that if she's there, things are going to be done right. And she, of course, has all of the cleaning and PPE and everything that she would need. Transportation. So some of the districts are having issues with transportation and athletics. So far, we've been very lucky that working with Dave and Jeremy with the transportation department, they are currently set up for running 2 transports, we'll say buses or buses and vans, for each of the teams. The teams are a little bit larger than they would be normally. You can actually play 4 varsity sports this year if we actually get the 4 seasons in. So some of the football athletes are playing soccer, and volleyball athletes are playing field hockey or girls soccer, and so on and so forth. Some of them went to cross country, so they're a little bit larger than they normally would be. And once we get over that 22 person limit, it pushes us into a second bus. So we try to run them, but they just don't leave. We tried. Let's see. So parents, which this is normal, they can go get their child from an away event, but they all have this all pre-approved through Family ID. They've already agreed to our transportation policy. This is even though there is currently no away spectators, okay? So they can't go and drop off a kid or stay with a kid and then pick them up. That's not allowed. But they are allowed to just go scoop them up at the end and take them if they have, some sort of emergency circumstance, Okay. Spectators, we talked a little bit about the spectator rule that the executive committee passed last week. Says that no away fans are allowed, but 2 fans per player are allowed at home contests. So we're putting into place different checks and balances to make sure that we have the proper 2 that are entering the facility, that if they are screened, and where they're going to sit, and so on and so forth. How this happens, as far as do we get a list the night before, or do we have a sign-up sheet for 2 individuals and that's the limit, remains to be seen. it just is a little bit of a function of how quickly would it work that a parent would be able to respond to us. So we have kind of some backups in place if that isn't going to work out. There we go. So the big question seems to be, when can high-risk practices or activities take place? There is another meeting on October 26th to discuss this. As of right now, even though the state has told us that you may begin high-risk practices, again, the smart idea is that things were taken off the plate in order to try to get what we are allowed to run smoothly and in a way that we can ensure the safety of all the students, staff, and so on and so forth. So it's a good thing that they've taken a time out, even though it's probably not the favorite topic, and pushing off activities isn't what people want to hear. I personally think it's a good thing. There are plans in place to run these activities later in the year, provided everything is going well. One of the things that we're asking the state to do is take another look at when high-risk games can start. Currently, there are no high-risk games allowed to start until December 31st, when they will be reevaluated. And our concern is that typically we've been given about 2 weeks, and then it's like, okay, be ready in 2 weeks, go. So we're really asking them, if you see something coming down, can you let us know so we can be prepared? I think all the buildings, special education, athletics, throughout the summer and the beginning of the school year, we're given about 2 weeks lead time, and it's very, very difficult. Even if you have all your ducks in a row, it's very challenging to get it all ready to go. So these are our current participation numbers. You see that we're just about over that 22 mark in every sport, and there's, of course, 2 coaches that need to have transportation as well. In a normal year, these would be outstanding, healthy, great numbers. It just, the 2 bus part, it can be a little frustrating, but it's nice to see. A lot of the teams seem to be younger. We have no seniors currently on field hockey. Girls soccer is definitely young, boys soccer is definitely young. So in a sense, this is really great. In a time when we've been struggling with JV teams, we haven't had them, these numbers are good and healthy, and hopefully we'll build back up the programs, even though this is a little bit of a tough time. So the future seasons. My favorite word has been currently, because everything seems to change, right? So currently, the winter season will be November 30th through about January. That may shift some. So what we're trying to do is make them basically even, or as close to even as we can, rather than one large season and then multiple small seasons. So the November 30th may shift back slightly. And when you think about it, if we're not able to play any games until December 31st, that's a long time to just practice. That's a grind. So we might just push it back, not Putnam Valley itself, but Section 1, in order to have just a few weeks there leading up to when we're able to have the games. And it'll expand the current fall season, all right? We talked a little bit about asking the state for guidance ahead of time. Fall 2, which would be competitive cheer, football, and volleyball, would be about March through May, possibly the end of February. I don't know exactly how football is going to be played in February, but we will see. We do have a turf plow. Spring should be about 2 months as well, May to June. And depending on what goes on with the testing and school and the structure of school at the end, will determine how deep into June athletics actually runs. And again, that's going to be vetted through Section 1 and the executive committee, which comprises many superintendents and athletic directors. So right now, another fear is that there are some slight overlaps. And if this works out properly, which I believe it will, there will be about a week of an overlap between the seasons, each one. And the important thing to note is that you're going to be able to roll over some of those practices. This is a normal thing if you go through playoffs. So our girls' basketball team won the section title, was in regionals last year. Those athletes were not allowed to start softball and so on and so forth until that season's complete. The same thing is going to take place here, except they're just crammed much closer together. So you'll be able to roll over 3 practices for all of the sports except baseball, which you can roll over 4. And that's determined based on the contact and so on and so forth. That's about it for now. Section 1, the executive committee did decide that modified sports would not run in the fall. It was just determined that it was too much to handle for the bulk of the communities as far as what their facilities could hold, how the social distancing piece would play out, cohorting, all of those things kind of played into taking a timeout on the modified sports, middle school sports. And it's another unfortunate piece of this, but again, I think in the long run, we have to be successful now. And I think it's an important piece to ensure that happening.
And I just have a quick question, well, 2 quick questions. This may be implied, and I'm just clarifying. So kids who are virtual during the day are allowed to come in for practice? The whole team practices at the same time?
That's a good question. So there was a clarification through New York State Public High School Athletic Association on what a bona fide student is. And a bona fide student that's taking their courses as well as phys ed is allowed, even though they're full virtual, to come and participate in athletics, yes.
And it would make sense in terms of a practice. If you can play a game with that many kids at the same time, you should be able to practice with them.
Right,
as well. Right.
so some districts did decide to spread out, kind of phase in and have, maybe 10 today, 10 tomorrow, and then they phased it in. And, I personally don't know exactly what the point of that was. If within 1 week you're all going to be together,
Right.
what does it matter that we're only going to have 10 and 10 for these? It's only 2 practices anyway because you're rotating. So we decided not to do that. The other thing, the section they waived the 7-day, I think I skipped the slide. They waived the 7-day rule starting October 12th. So what that does, the 7-day rule is put in place for safety purposes, to give the kids a break, to give them recovery. And they're waiving that rule in order to get games and things in if we run into either closures or poor weather or anything like that. Well, because it's a safety rule, I'm not a big fan of waiving those. It was put into place for a reason, right? So we have discussed with the coaches that we won't be doing that. We will be giving these students a day off. What it does allow us to do is you don't have to pay as close attention to it. If you were in a regular season and you violated that 7-day rule, the season's immediately over. So what this is going to do is we just won't have to pay attention to that. If we end up with a Monday game, we can practice on Sunday, and then depending on how your games play out that week, you don't have to give them a day off before that game down here, and it's just a little bit of a breather is the way we're looking at it. The other piece for safety, they put in 10 days of practice prior to any games. So we started on the 29th. Our first game is going to be this Saturday on 10/10. So with 1 day of rest in there, it's 11 days. And they did this in order to regain fitness. The coaches were not allowed to communicate or interact with any of the athletes prior to the 29th. So there was literally no preseason, nothing, which you would, of course, always have. So this 10 days, just make sure that it's a little bit safer. They're used to playing in masks and so on and so forth. So.
That makes sense. And I have one other question. I understand and like the 2 spectator per player, but Putnam Valley is a little of Friday Night Lights. We know that we have teachers that come to games, board members come to games, alumni come to games. are we not allowing, it? Do they fall under away? Are we not allowing that? How are we communicating that to the community?
Right, so I'm going to put something together to send out to the community, but at this time, it will be 2 people per player only. It doesn't matter what kind of badge you're wearing, you know? That's the rule. We're still falling under that 50-person exterior rule and all of that, so that, what we clarified on that was it does not include the actual players out on the field,
Okay.
which is nice. So we're going to be right there at that capacity to begin
Sure.
with. Again, it's going to be difficult,
And add a couple
but
chaperones.
the overwhelming feeling by all of the athletic directors, and this is probably an unpopular thing for communities, but the overwhelming feeling was that this is for the students. We have to get this going for the students, and that's it. And we know parents are going to be really upset. It's not great, right? But this is how we were able to get it done. So we're going with it.
So on that, I mean, I just wonder, does it make sense that you've got the schedule of games, right? And you know what kids may or may not be playing in those games. Every student is just given 2 tickets, and you do a ticketing system. You can't come on and you can't be in the stands or whatever without a ticket, and you have, you can have enforcement of that on our grounds.
Yeah, I thought about that. I thought about badges, giving 2 passes or tickets or anything like that. The problem is, oh, I lost my ticket. Now what do you do? We can run into a lot of issues, and I think what we have in place now, it's just going to avoid all that, and the result will be the same. I just, even, there are districts that are asking for gate lists prior. We ask for rosters to put together home-away rosters by the fence and so on and so forth, each contest. Some schools will never respond. They just don't. They're either too busy, understaffed, whatever it happens to be. When you're starting to talk about gate lists, that's just not going to happen. You can think about some of these systems, but realistically, it's not going to happen.
But in theory, you shouldn't have to worry about any of that stuff on the away team, because they're not allowed to
I
be
understand
there.
what you're saying, but let's say that I give the 2 tickets to you and your wife, and you get stuck at work. That's it. So now your wife can't bring grandma, or, it's just, there's things that could happen that will, and you're going to be sitting there in some sort of a potential conflict situation. Whereas what I plan to put in place, 2 people will come in, that's the limit. If we have a 3rd person come in, I'll just call them all 3 down or 4 down. We'll have a discussion about it, and 2 will stay. And I think it's going to cover all of the different possible scenarios.
Right. I don't think it limits our flexibility, maybe to Joe's point, if we're looking at a senior night and the freshman players decide, you know what, I'm not going to have my parents come, I'm going to give my 2 seats
Right.
up to extended family of the seniors playing their last game. So it's not like in order to take the 2 tickets, you have to be a relative of that individual. It's just that each individual player is only allowed 2 tickets. So they could certainly work internally to decide, hey, I don't have anyone coming, does anyone need my ticket, does anyone have family who wants to come? It's really just about the maximum number of spectators
Yeah.
is 2 per athlete.
So I have a few others. What is the Department of Health guidance on contact tracing with other schools during athletic events? So somebody is diagnosed from Briarcliff and they're here or we're there.
We have that going on right now, as a matter of fact. And we have been instructed that that individual that was, again, not testing positive, but was a contact traced person, is quarantined. They're not meeting with the team, they're not meeting with their home school, anything like that. And until further notice, when either that individual is positive or so on and so forth, nothing else changes. The students are all wearing masks, and socially distancing as much as possible out on the field. And again, those cases are going to be individually determined through the Department of Health, working directly with them and talking about what type of contact the individual had and how close, how long, all those things.
And then during games or practices, who's enforcing the protocol? And especially I'm thinking on the games. And I saw on the slide talk very clearly about wearing masks, et cetera, et cetera. What if you've got somebody who's not doing it? What's the protocol?
Sure.
Who is it? Is it the refs that's going to be the arbiter of?
No. So we discussed that, and that is, first layer is going to be the coach, because you figure that there may be issues with players out on the field or course or whatever it happens to be, so they're the first layer. If we have, just to dive a little bit into it, if we have a player that does need a mask break, there's things in play already as if you were winded or had an injury where you would sit, or if if you feel it coming, you raise your hand, you make eye contact with the coach and they sub you out, so on and so forth. What I've talked to the other athletic directors about is if you have somebody sit or kneel, whatever your signal is for I need a break, they have to come out. Because my fear is that they'll kneel, ref or will go over and they'll just throw their mask back up and, oh, no, I'm good. That's not what this is for. The Conference 3 and Dr. Corsaro and all the Putnam, Northern Westchester, Boise schools have agreed that if you need to pull your mask down or you need a break, you need to move off of the field of play to a separate location and take your mask break. To further get into what you were asking, that's going to be layer 1 is the coach, layer 2 is myself. The official is not going, they're a private contractor. It's difficult, it's challenging to get them to do different things. This is one of them, but that's okay. I think it should fall on the school, and all of the athletic directors are passing back and forth agreements that your kids have been screened, that they will be wearing masks, that they know that they're going to move off into a separate location. So all of those things are already being laid out and put in place prior to we roll out to a contest and somebody's not doing it. If they don't do it, it's on the home site, just like it would be for a fan that's, irate and yelling out onto the field and so on and so forth.
I got 2 more quick ones. I know that this is not a typical year, so your team sizes are not typical either. And I'm talking about the transportation concerns. Is there a typical attrition, since we're just into week 1 or week 2 of practices? Is there attrition of people who are just either not going to be, that change,
Sure.
and then that transition issue goes away?
Yeah, it could be. What I've been doing is, initially, I think I was sending them every day to Jeremy, the numbers. Now it's every few days, or if there's a change that would be of note, I'll send them and Mike the updates, and Dave as well, just to keep them posted on where the numbers stand. It's a double-edged sword.
Sure.
We could run them. We could do things to make it not that enjoyable, and they would want to leave. But I don't really know that that's the goal. We like that there's a lot of kids
Sure.
out there. It's back in the day, I remember Pete Kuzma telling me, "Don't ever tell me you're cutting somebody because we don't have a uniform or anything of that nature." I don't want to hear that that's the reason this child is not able to go out there and have a good time with their peers and so on and so forth. And that's kind of the mindset that I have about it. I like that there's a huge number out there, and somebody may look and go, "Oh, that's what a soccer ball looks like," but it may be their love, their new love, and what draws them to school and helps them get through this.
And then I guess because it's such probably a compressed season, there's probably very little opportunity for makeup games if things go awry in any game. Is that already set that there won't be, or is that just out there that might be?
It's a good question. It's going to be very challenging because being so condensed, they're like back to back to back. So We are not currently required to drop crossovers in place of league games. Normal, you are. You have to get those league games in, even if you have to just drop crossovers. We waived all that. If we can get them in, we'll get them in. If we can't, there's not going to be any penalty for COVID closures or, anything like that. You're never going to forfeit a contest for a reason like that. Whereas if you couldn't get a league game in a normal circumstance, and it was our fault, for whatever reason, we either can't drop or whatever, then we would forfeit. So we've moved all of that out. Like I said, the goal is to just get as many games and as much participation for the students as possible.
And since there's no playoffs, there's a lot less.
Well, that's not necessarily the case. There will be the end of the Fall 1 season, regular season is approximately November 14th. And then the Athletic Council is currently going to determine if they approve the playoff structure that we have in place. And it's basically just a tournament style, just whittling down to one player. It wouldn't be, there's no resulting state championship or regionals or anything like that. It would just be a section and class size.
So then cancellations do make a difference.
Yes and no. The way that you would normally seed to get in and all that, we're making sure that every team gets an opportunity to get in there, and you win, you move on. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks. I'll tell you what, it's been a challenge, but at the same time, it is so wonderful to just see the kids out
See
there.
kids back.
Yeah, I mean, they love it. It's their passion, and that's what we're trying to keep going as best we can.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to quickly commend Brian. I know it's a tremendous amount of work and thought and effort that went into this. It sort of came in spurts, and him and I would talk, and we would have some guidance, and then we'd have to wait for a couple of weeks to wait for a decision to come down. And while I was waiting to see what was happening, Brian was working behind the scenes, coming up with contingency plans and what will happen if this, what will happen if that. And I know he's been extremely open in communicating with me, his feelings, how do you feel about this, what do you think about that? And I know it was very helpful for him and I. We were on some meetings together with superintendents and ADs from around the region, and it was helpful to have someone who you knew was on the same page and had the opportunity to sort of have a unified front. This is what we think is right, and this is why we think it's that way. And I know that it'll be an interesting year, as I mentioned before. Brian's really been on top of the coaches and the athletes and the mask wearing, sort of a zero tolerance policy. Once we let it start going, it's going to be hard to get it back. So I do appreciate those efforts. And as many know, our athletic parents tend to be some of the more vocal parents in the district.
Passion is okay.
That's okay. But I think Brian has done an excellent job in communicating with them, explaining the expectations and the rules and the reasons why. And I think that has gone a long way, because certainly my phone has not been ringing off the hook from athletic parents who demand something better. So I just wanted to throw that out there and say thank you.
I appreciate it. It's been a fun team effort so far.
Dr. Lofton, maybe it's a question for you or for Jill. Now that it's really 4 seasons instead of 3, if I understand correctly.
Yep.
And we have more students engaged now, and if things continue to go well, we might get more and more, additional students engaged. The financial piece and the budget piece of the restrictions, the PPE, et cetera, is there a savings or are we kind of net as to where we had budgeted for athletics?
I think the first piece is it's too early to tell. We don't know if all 4 seasons will run, if they'll run in their entirety. We were sort of thinking about this when we appointed coaches. So the way in which we appointed coaches, to sort of that proration of stipend is built in, depending upon how long the season runs. And there's certainly some trade-offs. We may be costing a little more in transportation, but we're saving money on modified sports.
We're not running as many after-school buses, 4:30 and 5:30 buses, because we don't have other clubs and activities going on. So there's certainly going to be a trade-off, and we have to see how the rest of the year plays off to know sort of financially if we're at a net zero or not. But I think, as Brian had alluded to before, the students to have this opportunity, I think, is, as a school district, and this being an extension of our academic program, we have to do whatever we can to support them for as long as it's safely and responsibly okay for these sports to run.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. If I had to say one area that is probably an unknown, would be the transportation. But just looking at everything else that Jeremy mentioned and that you know takes place within athletics, between stipends and equipment and so on and so forth, that will not exceed what we normally spend. I anticipate it to be lower. You have to keep in mind that the seasons are all shorter.
Right.
All the equipment we didn't use within the last spring is still sitting there, all in brand-new boxes. There's a lot of things that will be good to go on that will cost less or maybe nothing at all this year. Again, it's just that busing, having to potentially do 2 buses. That would be the only thing I think would be a direct potential increase.
Then I had a super micro question, because I think you mentioned it in an email somewhere along the line, because we have larger teams than is typical. That there's not going to be, and the season is as short as it is, not enough time to get uniforms for
Right.
all those that play. What's the contingency for?
I was hoping you had the answer on that. It's going to be a challenge. I talked to the coaches and the players already, and I said, this is going to have to be a team effort here. We're trying to just keep this going the best we can, like we've explained already. And, there's going to probably be some deviation in some of the uniforms, as long as they pass muster as far as being allowed to play on the field. We're going to have to go with it. Unfortunately, girls soccer was scheduled to get new uniforms, and Nicole Ryan, the head coach, and I were starting to work on it, and then COVID hit, and it was like chaos, and it just got pushed.
Right.
And she knows that, the team knows that. So we're going to have to do some creative things there, that's for sure. That's one of the few things that I don't have completely locked down at this point, to be honest with you. So,
You'll figure it out.
yeah, we will.
That really was my last question. I'm sorry.
That's
And I
okay.
think,
Enjoy it.
everything I've heard, you're leading with safety as your decision-making
course.
force.
Always.
And I think you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, that's athletics in a nutshell. That's what gives all this gray hair going on, is
I get
trying to keep them safe and, being the guy that has to keep them in line. Unfortunately, it's just part of the job. But hopefully at the end of the day, when they get to play, they'll realize, okay, that's why we were able to play. So
Exactly. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you. So our next presentation, welcome Dr. Podesta and Mr. Chicory. We're going to hear a little bit about the opening of schools in the elementary school. Thank you.
I hope you have pictures, because you have the cutest kids.
Wow.
You do.
They are so cute,
You're
so we
saying
brought
that
lots of
sophomores and
pictures.
juniors in high school aren't cute?
Not cute. They're lovely, but they're not cute. Or they could be.
So good evening, everyone. I'm Margaret Podesta, and I'm here with my assistant principal, Tom Chicory, and we're going to present together on the opening of Putnam Valley Elementary School. And as I always say, we are honored to be here tonight. This is my 8th year I'm beginning here at Putnam Valley, and this year, of course, is like no other. But I am so beyond proud of this building, the amazing staff, and the children that we are working with every day. And we are here to talk about our challenges, but also our many successes to this point. And Mr. Chicory is going to say hello.
Good evening, everyone, and obviously I'm going to echo Dr. Podesta's thankfulness to the administration and to the custodial staff and the cafeteria staff and the board and all the staff members in the building. It's certainly a collaborative effort, and we attribute that collaboration to our successes.
So to celebrate some successes, Mr. Chicory brought an ice cream truck for the staff, who has been working incredibly hard since the beginning of the school year. And we just wanted to show that off with some social distancing and mask wearing, only to be removed to eat an ice cream cone. But this was a nice day, and we will talk about this amazing faculty and the challenges that they are facing right now, because they are real. And of course, we are seeing some amazing work being done. So we are open and safe. And Mr. Chicory, you wanted to handle this?
So, pardon, so we are completing our 5th week of uninterrupted school for both in-school and remote learners. And as you'll see in the presentation, we have been able to accommodate for both. And as you know, we are kindergarten through 4th grade school who has been able to bring in 78% of our in-school learners, which we're very proud of, and also accommodate our remote learners at home. We're following all Board of Health and CDC regulations as we have our masks on today, and as Dave Spittle mentioned earlier, the abundance of PPE that we have available for our staff and students with accommodations and otherwise. Classrooms have desks that are socially distant. We'll talk about that a little bit later in our presentation, but we've spent a great deal of time, again, with Dave and Dr. Luft and Dr. Podesta and myself, many times putting those desks in place ourselves. Students are wearing masks except for mask breaks, which happen about once an hour, and during lunch and when they're eating. Otherwise, they're wearing masks at all times. And again, our students have done an excellent job of keeping them on, to the surprise of many members of the community, including myself. They're doing an excellent job, and we give them praise for that. We do have water coolers, as Dave Spittle mentioned before, new water bottles that we want to say thank you to the PTA for donating. They're fantastic. They alleviate some of the stress of having to be mobile in a class and moving around and inside the hallways and helping keeping everyone safe, and that's been very helpful. Thank you. Remote students are logging on to regular Google Meets and are important members of their classroom communities, and I cannot state this enough that as I've heard Dr. Luft say many times, that you cannot replace in-school learning. Obviously, our communities inside the building are strong, but we also feel, Dr. Podesta and I, that our students at home, our remote learners, have really had a great experience in feeling as part of a community inside the classroom. We think that's just as important for their social emotional health, and it's been fantastic so far. Our master schedule, which I think has been provided to each of you, allows for separation of class cohorts at recess and at lunch. We worked on that pretty diligently to make sure our students are staying safe when they're outside, when they have an opportunity to get outside, which we're certainly promoting. And we want to give them an opportunity to stretch their legs, move around, but also stay within their cohorts in order to prevent contact with other cohorts and the potential spread of COVID. Arrival and dismissal are orderly and efficient. Certainly, one of the things that we worked on diligently coming up to the school year, and something that as I've spoken to other districts have certainly been some concern, but I think Dr. Podesta and I are proud of the way that we have entry and dismissal at the end of the day and in the beginning of the day, and it's been going fantastic and improving, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Thank you.
See, cute.
Here we go. We'll start with this picture. One change in our building, and there are several, we have an isolation room. So if we are concerned, or if the nurse is concerned that there is someone who may be positive, we have a room that's comfortable, it's safe, it's reassuring for the child, but it's a safe place for them to await for others, and away from others, and wait to be picked up. Here's a little model student for me from kindergarten showing me how he knows how to space in line from his friends when he's walking down the hallway. And you can see him wearing his mask. It's not even a question. These children are just adapting and wearing their masks throughout the day. What's really great, and I will take a lot of pride in this, but also a lot of celebration, is on top of all this crisis, we could have had other things to worry about, but Our staff has worked so very hard over the last few years to build up and update our curriculum in all content areas. And so our teachers are very well prepared to do the best teaching they can do under these extreme situations. So we know our standards, we know our curriculum resources, and we are always looking to improve, but our teachers know their curriculum, and even if they've changed grade levels, they are working on very strong teams who work collaboratively. They're prepared, they're ready. We have strong data supporting our school that our learners have been prepared. We're aware that our students have had a break from traditional schooling. We're working with that. We're working on focus. We're working on all that executive functioning again, but they're going to come along, these kids. And the teachers know, they know their craft, let's put it that way. They haven't done the remote and the in-school learning together. Nobody has in education, so there's nobody to really model it from, but before you know it, we'll be leading the way. This was handed to board members this evening, and it's just to give you a quick look at what our master schedule looks like. This is something that we've created over the years. It's tweaked every year by a teacher committee over the summer just to make sure we're meeting the needs of students very carefully. You will see that there's an ELA block, there's a math block, and there's an I block, an intervention block, and that is when students can be pulled out for support services, whether it be reading AIS or speech or occupational therapy or along those lines, so that if students do leave the classroom, and it's very safely done this year with wiped desks and guards up, the sneeze guards to make sure that germs are not spread, and then they're wiped down between students. We try not to share common spaces if we don't have to, but this I block is used for that. But it's also used as a teaching time in the classroom for support, for enrichment, and for extra creative writing or small group work with teachers. So you can see that this master schedule drives our day, and there's a lot of care and attention that's put into this to provide optimal learning for all students. And there we have some more students. This is an indoor recess day. Students in this classroom brought in activities of their own from home. The reason for that is we're not sharing materials. We're not touching the same materials. You can see their desks are spread apart. And when you first looked at this, when all the desks came in over the summer, it did feel a little heartbreaking, but you bring in these happy, beautiful children, and it's not quite as heartbreaking as we expected because they make it so full of joy.
Right, this is just a breakdown of our enrollment at Putnam Valley Elementary. Obviously, we have different sections. In kindergarten, we have 5 different sections led by fantastic teachers who are really, as I say, kind of rocking it. It is very difficult. There's certainly struggles. As Dr. Podesta mentioned, this is something that no one can model for us. It's something that hasn't been done before, and we're continuing to grow. As many times I've said, in the beginning of the school year, it felt as if we were building the ship underneath us as we're sailing. And I feel like these teachers have done an amazing job. Again, this is just our enrollment here. Each section you see for kindergarten has in between 15 and 16 in-school learners and between 5 and 7 remote learners. There's a remote learner in every classroom, and the total numbers for each kindergarten section are there. The only exception is Megan Boyle's New Horizons classroom, which has 3 kindergartners and no remote learners.
I think this, there. I did skip this accidentally, but if you're looking at the overall look of the school, in kindergarten we have 5 sections, all with in-school and remote learners. In first grade we have 5 sections. 4 of them have in-school and remote learners, and 1 is a split class. It involves 2 classrooms with a teacher and a teaching assistant. This is new to us this year. It's being done in other districts around us as well, and this is to ensure social distancing. The teacher does the teaching of the content, plans the lessons, takes care of the assessments, and the teaching assistant supports instruction and supports classroom management. We have 1 split class in first grade and 2 in 4th grade, and I can't say enough about all the personnel who have stepped into these roles very willingly, and and also they're making it work. We've made it clear that the teacher is the teacher teaching the new content. The children are thriving, and the two teachers go between two either nearby or actually adjoining classrooms. And it's the adults that move, the children don't, because the cohorts stay the same. In grade 2, we have 4 sections. That's our small class, 4 sections with in-school and remote learners. In grade 3, we have 5. And again, in grade 4, we only have the 4 sections, 2 in-school and remote, and 2 are split classes. And what's happened this fall is, guess where the new students who moved to Putnam Valley, guess where they went? They went to 4th grade. So we had a few surprises there, but the sections are still very manageable. They are large classes when you look at the total number of in-school and remote, but it's nothing we haven't had in the past. It's about 27, 28 4th graders. These children are older. We have very highly skilled, experienced teachers in these classes with strong teaching assistants working with them in the split classes. And right now, we do have extra support provided to the 2 in-school and remote classes just to get the year off to a good start. So I will say it's very successful. The teachers are working very hard under unprecedented situations.
And I think, just to reiterate for the community, that the reason there's a split class is because because of the size of the classes, you can't put as many kids in the classroom or maintain the safety. So that's why they're split into 2 classes. It's not, we want to do it that way. It's definitely not what we want to do.
No.
But in order to keep the classes going, we need to split them. We're lucky enough to have the space to be able to do that. If we didn't have the space, that would be a very different situation.
It would be very different. And actually, if you're ever able to visit during the day and see the 4th grade setup, if you can picture the 3rd floor in the original part of the building, there are classrooms that are joined like a living room and dining room, and they're really all one family in there. And on the other side of the hall, it's the same thing. If you picture that versus putting 27 children in a gym with desks and a movable smart board, I would choose this as a teacher. So, it's picking the best of all situations for these kids during this crisis, and so far we're finding success. We also have the Achieve Pullout Special Education Room with a teacher who's assisting children in grades 1 through 4 according to their schedules and their IEPs. So Mr. Chicory talked about kindergarten. This is just a brief look at 1st grade, where you have around 20 students, 21 students per class, except for the split class. And by the way we arranged it, we did not put remote learners in the split class because that teacher is working with the teaching assistant, planning lessons for 2 groups, and we are thankful that we planned it that way. 2nd grade, look how small this group is. I have a total of 82 2nd graders for some reason, but they're wonderful with a very strong team. And again, the remote learners are balanced throughout the classes, and sometimes what happened is somebody switched from the last minute from remote to in school, so the numbers weren't quite balanced. But then you have one teacher with a larger classroom, so just like you're saying, the square footage makes a huge difference, and so Mrs. Boyd happens to have a larger classroom, a larger physical space, so she has more in-school learners. So it's hard to describe how much planning and how many details went into the month of August and how this entire administrative team worked on an hourly basis together, really. Grade 3, same thing, 5 sections of remote and in-school, and grade 4 with the 2 classes with remote and in-school and 2 classes with the split. Okay, so this past summer was like no other, as we know. It was a true K-12 effort, and when Mr. Spittle talks with such pride about Putnam Valley, you have to really look at the entire district and how we followed Dr. Luff's vision of opening schools on time, and we worked together, and there were days when we said, how is this even going to happen? And then you just had to decide, you know what, we are all in, and we're going to make this work. And we've been very fortunate so far, with an amazing staff behind all of us. The parent survey went out. We watched those numbers truly by the hour. We're still kind of tired from August, I think. It's already October. But you know what? It paid off because we've been open ever since. Our elementary school is unique in that when I compare it to the county I live and towns of my colleagues, 100% in-school learning for K-4 has been offered. The children who have chosen, or their parents have chosen fully remote, we can honestly say that was a choice that they made. And so, we're hoping to give them the very best learning opportunities for sure, and that allowed us to fit children in, actually, socially distanced, but we are unique in what we've been able to do so far with our 100% in-school learning, which of course, children need school. Class placement was completed later than ever in August. We weren't able to have our kinder camp. We were getting our numbers at the end of the month, but somehow it all came together in time for those buses to run. And I already talked about the setup of the split classes.
So one thing that I think is absolutely fantastic characteristic of Putnam Valley Elementary Schools and really the district as a whole is the opportunity for outdoor learning. We have abundance of space outside the building, as we know, which is more important than ever during these times. We have here pictures that you see of students from self-contained classroom in a fenced-off but area that's made available to them through the hard work of Dave Spittle and his crew this year, making sure that this space is safe and accessible for students to be able to use. Again, as you look here, one of the times that students have the opportunity to take their mask off is when they are eating lunch. One of the things that we ask for them to do is to stay seated, obviously, when they have their masks off. If you can notice that desks have been separated. Students are doing an amazing job sitting down, staying in their space. They're sitting forward and making sure that they're following all the directions as given to them. They've been doing an amazing job with that.
And a big change, of course, this year is we're not using the common space of the cafeteria. Different classes aren't going in and out of common spaces, so specials are taking place in classrooms except for outdoor phys ed, and they're eating lunch in their classrooms. So planning for the school year, of course, we've been over this and you've heard from Mr. Spittle, but the amount of effort going into the planning of furniture storage, desks being 6 feet apart, measuring the square footage of every room. I know Mr. Chicory went in and he just walked across every room and tried to estimate how many desks could fit in, what would be the max, borrowing desks from the middle school and high school, planning for specials and lunches and keeping the cohorts separate, and the technology that was needed in every room just in case we had to use different spaces, such as the auditorium or the gymnasium. The custodial staff worked endlessly, and there was so much work to do, right down to adjusting the height of individual desks coming from the high school to our young learners' heights. That took time and effort, and we appreciate all of it. And here is a third grade classroom. For those of you who know the school well, the new wing is not the fourth grade wing this year. Based on the numbers in the cohorts, it became the third grade wing, and that's because mathematically it worked out for the size of the classes. And these are big, beautiful rooms, but the social distancing allows for 18 or so in each classroom. For our remote learners, this is a learning curve for all of us. I continue to give our hardworking teachers credit. This is not an easy time. And as Dr. Luff said, they're trying to do it all and do the very best they can for all students. And you kind of end the day, even though it's been successful, feeling, oh, what could I have done differently or what could I have done better? But you know what? They're doing it and they're learning from each other. We always have teachers who kind of end up leading the way in some fashion, and then others lead the way in other ways. So they have Google Meets every day. Anyone who needed a laptop, we are very fortunate the district was able to supply that as a borrowing laptop for the time being. We have learned new things that we need in our school. We need a Friday pickup day. So if teachers have folders and hard copies for parents who aren't able to print, we now have a table in the lobby for all remote learners where their materials are kept safely, and they can pick up their folders on Fridays and drop off hard copies of work. We have come up with guidelines for parents that I think parents found very helpful as far as what is helpful on a Google Meet as far as parent participation and what is not. We've also talked about who Google Classrooms are shared with, and they're really shared with the student and the parent, but not the babysitter or the daycare. And, these are things you learn as you go. We've learned a lot about Google Classroom and how that works, and we have every student, even in the split classes where there are no remote students, in Google Classrooms, because we could be remote for 48 hours next week, even though we don't want to be. So we're just preparing for that, right? We have support services built into our schedule, and that means speech, counseling, OT, PT. It's built in remotely, and it's built in school in safe ways. And actually, our remote learners have their own specials block, because when we looked at the schedule, we discovered if they have specials, meaning gym, art, music, technology, from a 9 to 9:40 window, that frees up the specials to go outside with the in-school learners, or do something with the in-school learners that won't work as well when you have remote learners in front of you. So all this creative thinking takes a big team. It takes a big community, and it can't come from just one person, all the ideas, and especially when you don't know what you're going to come up with as far as challenges. It's an amazing effort by our entire staff. And here's a kindergarten class on the left, and if you can just picture this, the kindergarten teacher is up in the left corner there. You've got your kindergartners at their desks, and she's doing something on the smartboard. And if you look at that laptop, you can see little cute faces, and they are joining the classroom. They can see the smartboard as well. They're answering questions and they're talking, and they are the remote learners joining in the class lesson. So the first time I was starting to observe this, I'm sitting in the back just enjoying the lesson, and all of a sudden I hear somebody speaking from the laptop. The kids don't even flinch. Okay, Joey on the laptop is speaking. They're just used to it. They're in the room. They're part of the community. And even I sat there saying, wow, I cannot believe what's happening. This takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of management, but you will see it at every grade level. And then over on the right, you'll see the 4th grade teacher doing the same thing. She happens to have half the class in school, half the class at home. So she's got her homies and roomies, which Dr. Wills referred to when she visited. And she'll say, the next question is for the roomies. Here we go. And so she's worked out her own style there, which is working for the children.
So for our youngest learners, obviously kindergarten is an interesting time. It's the welcoming of school into the kindergarten children's lives. We had an opportunity to perform our kindergarten orientation and bus runs. We did it in 3 sections, 2 kindergarten classes per section, or per session, and then with our self-contained classroom in one of the 5th sections of kindergarten. Kindergarten students were able to come. They had an opportunity to go into to do a bus run. Dr. Podesta and I took the parents into the back, into the outdoor classroom, and had an opportunity to answer questions, explain how the school year was going to go, and ease and comfort some of the parents' concerns as their children were entering the building for the first time. So kindergarten screening took place in September, and this is not typical, but this year we had to change things up a little bit, obviously, and it's been working out smoothly. It gave us a little bit of time to understand our students a little bit better, and our kindergarten teachers, as I mentioned before, have been doing a fantastic job, even though there's been some significant change to their daily lives. There was no kinder camp this year, obviously for reasons out of our control, but many of our kindergarten parents have not been inside the school, and this is again something that we're not really used to, and we really would love to have them be able to come in and see the exciting classrooms and some of the things that Dr. Podesta just mentioned about how these communities are learning, things that are happening every day inside the classroom, but we hope that'll happen soon enough. The children are amazing. I think that we go through this entire presentation, we show pictures, we talk about the successes of the teachers and the staff, but we really do believe that without the children and without the joy and brilliance that they bring to the school, although we were nervous that it wasn't going to be the case, and we were going to be dealing with a lot of social emotional concerns and this missing school. They've come in, they've adapted, they're wonderful, we love them, and they really make the building an amazing place to be every day. And again, here it says students teach us how to adapt, and they're really resilient and amazing, as I mentioned.
So a wonderful addition to this program is the fact that we have Mandarin lessons again this year for kindergarten, but also for our first graders. And as you remember, this was a huge success, a pilot program from BOCES last year. This year, I want to thank again the Putnam Valley Education Foundation for making this program possible in our district. They are supporting this program this year through Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES. And it was very exciting for our kindergarten families who went to first grade to hear that this was continuing. I can't say enough about Mr. Alex Goffman, our technology assistant in the elementary school, who really, his job has probably quadrupled in size in our elementary school since the spring. He's a whiz. I call him the computer whisperer. But he has been attending, just so you know, every Mandarin lesson in first grade and kindergarten to make sure that the Google Meet is up, the remote learners are joining in the Mandarin learning, and he is providing the visiting teaching assistant all the support she needs right now to learn how to do that. She is learning the school. She's new this year, actually. She's right there, Miss Lucy. Miss Lucy, the kids love her, and she is adapting to this building, but she's also adapting to the technology with remote learners on her side, and Alex is making that quite easy. So we're very fortunate to be leading the way with this program. If any of you saw our Chinese New Year celebration last year, it was just amazing. So we are grateful, and first grade teachers have welcomed this warmly because it's new to first grade this year. So we're in full swing already. You know, we know some schools, just for so many reasons, are just having their first in-school day today, actually. We have had our kindergarten orientation and bus runs. We've had 3 virtual back-to-school nights, one for grade 3 and 4, one for grade 1 and 2, one for kindergarten. We've had 2 school picture days, thanks to the PTA. We even had a remote learner picture day where they could come. They were all outside, individual pictures only for all students, but the yearbook will be beautiful. We've had a flu shot clinic day at our school. We've had 6 fire drills already, and we have practiced lots of outdoor recess thanks to this beautiful fall weather with separated cohorts and new fields designated. Mr. Chicory helped set up a rotating schedule where classes move to different places on each day, but they stay within their own cohorts. And actually, when we get to the all blacktop recess, I asked Mr. Spittle the other day, could we have separate rectangles? I had talked to Dr. Luft about different colors to keep the cohorts all separate, but large enough on the blacktop, and like magic, they're there. The different colored rectangles are there, and we are ready for a muddy or a snowy day where the kids can go outside and stay safe. And then I told you on Fridays we have remote material pickup, so we have new parts to our culture that we've never had before, but so far, it seems to be working. And here is a fire drill on a beautiful fall day. You can see the children just cooperate so beautifully. They try to social distance. We go out, we take attendance, and we've already had 6. So we work hard at the elementary school, and I never have to say that because you know it already. But in full swing, we've had multiple grade level coordinator meetings already to talk about mostly the remote teaching because it is such a learning curve, but also just our schedules and our planning. We've had a building steering committee meeting already. I'm on phone calls with the PTA, or I talk to the reps who happen to work in the building as well. We've had a building emergency response team meeting. We have a new student review meeting tomorrow. We have started our RTI meetings, response to intervention. The monthly faculty meetings are taking place, and they are virtual, of course. Actually, all our meetings are now virtual, as much as possible. We will be having our first after-school PD hours for the faculty, and that, I'm sure, will concentrate on remote teaching. You can see, along with the master schedule I gave you, you can also see one teacher sample of what a remote daily schedule would look like if we were all at home. And you will see the Google Meet link is already there. The children will know how to access their content areas with their teacher. And so we'll be, although we're still getting there, we'll be so far ahead of where we were in the spring with what that will look like and what that contact time with the teacher will look like all the way K through 4. And our 504 and IEP meetings are in full swing as well. Here we have, on the table in the picture, you'll see the remote table pickup. Parents, of course, do not come into the school for safety reasons, but here is Liz, who works in our office. She's finding materials for a student whose parent is at the door ready to pick up the materials. They are organized by grade level and teacher. And as she says, we know what we're doing around here, so that's a good thing. And the picture on the right just shows you our picture day, where the children came out. They were lined up with their class safely. They did one picture at a time. They took off their mask, held it in their lap, got their picture taken, put their mask back on. Perfect. And we had great weather for at least one of our picture days and half of our other picture day that we had. Okay, coming soon. Here we go.
Coming soon, we have a fire safety visit from the Putnam Valley Fire Department. That's next week. Each class has been given a short video to watch, and students will have an opportunity to watch that video in their class, and then have also an opportunity to go outside and see some of the equipment that the fire department will have available for them to see. There is a virtual author visit coming from this, tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow. Yes, for Ms. Bruno's class, and thank you, Guy, for the recommendation. The student parade, which we'll also be having a fantastic opportunity, or not that we've also been having, we just had a student parade where we had an opportunity to have some pictures, some of those, again, cute faces outside, talking about individuality and how each student is special in their own way. PV Pride Days, which we know happen the first Friday of every month. Teachers and students are encouraged to wear Putnam Valley Pride, articles of clothing and whatnot. Cove Care lessons for 3rd and 4th grade and social emotional wellness will be beginning soon, as they did last year. They were a great addition to the school and provided time for students to speak with people from Cove Care about their social emotional health, and they'll continue to do so this year. November 1st is quarter parent conferences. It's virtual. We're in the process of setting up those schedules now. There's a form that's been created, thank you, and teachers and parents will have an opportunity to set those up, and we will begin with those for the first quarter parent-teacher conferences in November. I believe it's the 14th.
And just quickly, the schedule adjustments for this year, as you've heard, we do have a shorter school day. Parent drop-off has increased with the cars, so we have drop-off at a different place. Well, drop-off is in the front as usual, but the pickup is in the front also, and that's very different from last year. Specials classes, as I said, the remote learners have a window at the beginning of the day where that happens, so all specials teachers are on their laptops at that time, meeting with their remote learners and going through their lessons. We have lost instructional time, so I mean, we're feeling very positive about what we're doing, but we have made some sacrifices here because we do miss that hour of learning as far as our subject areas go. But that 2:45 to 3:30 time when the teachers are still in the building has proven to be extremely important for teacher preparation, for planning, for remote student check-in, for extra support for remote students who need it. So that just did really work out well. And the RTI meetings are in the afternoons this year as opposed to the morning. And as far as that goes, they'll be virtual. And if this time seems to work for us, we'll keep them on Tuesdays and Wednesdays in the afternoons. Here you have some, actually on the left is a music class inside a classroom with the children with their masks doing some movement to music. And on the right, there's Mr. Coleman. He's helping out with technology in the classrooms right now, and he's always got them thinking. usually about math. And as you know, we have some building updates. The science room or the makerspace is actually gorgeous. It's going to go to the outside. It's really a beautiful room, and the children will be able to use that for years to come. We're excited about the auditorium updates with the air conditioning and the better lighting. The cohort rectangles for recess on the blacktop, as I said, and the many outdoor learning areas. We are encouraging teachers to get that fresh air with students, to take a break and go outside, and there are just so many different areas that the teachers are using, and there's a sign up that they use all the time for common spaces, such as, you know, the outdoor learning center or the hiking trails or the fields or even the cafeteria or the gym, which are open for mask breaks and for spreading out. Here's a picture of the new carpet on the stairs in the auditorium on the left. So that's just going in right now, very clean and fresh. And on the right is a wall in the new makerspace science room where you can see materials have been organized and there are shelves for holding all the crafts for makerspace. So that's going to be a very inviting room, both of them actually. We have been working very hard, especially this week, to prepare in the case of going remote. All remote schedules for all teachers will actually be posted on a link on our website, so there will be no mystery, no surprise. Parents will know months in advance, hopefully, from when they need them as to what their learning will look like and what their times will look like, and the teachers are working on that, and actually most of them are ready right now. The daily school learning schedule will be followed. Support services will be included. And if school closes for more than 48 hours and a child is without a laptop, they will be able to get a laptop. And so we'll arrange that pickup for them. Teachers now, currently, including special area teachers, are making sure that students can access Google Classroom, along with parent support being provided. We're working on directions that parents who are unfamiliar with this will be able to read and know what they're doing as far as assisting their children for logging on, because that's very important. And you know that the Character Ed and Diversity Committee is a key committee in our building. The PTA provided a book for each classroom, and we thank the PTA for that generosity. We give Character Ed awards, and we don't announce it based on the student's name, but actually on the character trait that we see. It might be responsible, it might be caring, it might be considerate, and those are the words we celebrate in the morning announcements. We continue with our ruler, our Yale model training for social emotional intelligence and labeling our emotions. So we're looking forward to that, and I'm thankful to my building team who has signed up to help with that this year. Tom Chicory has been helping organize the Center for Environmental Education opportunities for our classes. The sustainability for the district continues. We had many children participate in our summer reading challenge, and they just received nice gift cards just the other day as prizes, and we continue to support reading, of course. And the classrooms all have engaging classroom activities, and teachers are so creative where you have cooperative groups and competitions going on, and you might have remote learners and in-school learners in the same group, and they are working together, and it's just amazing. It's not easy, but we have an amazing staff here. This is the book that the Character Ed Committee is working with this year, The Day You Begin, and this goes along with our social justice and our equity and all that we want our kids to know and learn about. And there, of course, is the famous mood meter on the right, based with our ruler method and our emotional intelligence. So as Dr. Luff said about a year ago, we grow from challenges, and we've had challenges, I think, ever since he said that. But here we are, learning from our new craft. It's not your fault. And we are learning, and we continue to grow. There is a limited AIS schedule in the elementary school, or we have a shorter day. We needed staff for other reasons, and so our students are not getting math AIS at this point, so that's important to note. We hope we can figure something out as we go, but of course our teachers know how to differentiate. Our specials teachers are not working in their own rooms. They're moving on carts from room to room, so this is not ideal, but they are stepping up to the challenge, and I thank them for that. The classroom lunches, they're being delivered to classrooms. It's a lot of planning and work on the monitors' parts. When you have a cohort of children and you have peanut allergies, you can't put children in classes where people have to have nuts for protein, so that was a lot of planning too. But we're in a good space with that, where everyone is safe. We are not having food treats in the classrooms this year. There won't be Halloween candy and cupcakes. There aren't birthday cupcakes. So we're just being extra safe with germs and sharing, and I think it's okay. You know, it doesn't all have to focus on food, but oh, we do miss it, right? And are the parents, this is sad, the parents are not in the building. We do not have guest readers, but we can have them virtually. The parents aren't coming in as class parents helping out. This is just something we're doing. We want our schools to stay open, and we want everyone to stay healthy. And we will be having virtual parent conferences, which aren't quite the same as sitting down with a teacher and having a heart-to-heart at a table face-to-face, but thank goodness for technology, because we can continue to communicate. And there have been, and you know, we're always looking at the positive, but there have been some surprising special moments with all of this. I think you might remember in the spring, our whole school, we had a whole school video with messages to our students, and that's something that can go down in history. It turned out to be beautiful. The fourth grade farewell parade, I can't tell you how many parents have reached out and asked, are we repeating that? So we had a microphone, we had the bubble bus, we had the entire staff cheering the kids on. We all wore our matching shirts that we usually wear on field day, and that was a beautiful day and a beautiful moment. The parent meetings in the outdoor classroom for kindergarten orientation, when Jeremy said, can you meet with the parents outside, I was like, what? What are we doing? And do you know, it turned out to be so nice. And so you just learn from having to think outside the box, right? And you know what? We're being all that we can be at PV. These are not easy times, but we continue, just like Mr. Spittle said, as a community and as a school district, we continue PV rising. And we continue to learn. We're all learning new things all the time because we have to. So it's the only way to go right now, is just to keep learning and keep doing all we can for these kids. And it's not going any further, but I thought I had one more picture. But I will take any questions for anyone.
Just a point of clarification, AIS for the community, could you tell what that means?
Yep. Academic Intervention Services, so that's reading support or math support. We do have reading support right now, and it's good that we do, because a lot of our children had that summer slide plus a spring slide, so we really want to get these reading levels up. And then the Math AIS is something that we've had, and it's a strong program for us. It was taught by Mr. Coleman. We're using him in another way right now. He's doing an amazing job. But we'll continue to take a look at that for our needs this year.
Thank you.
I just, back in August, mid-August, you probably know the date, we were feeling very discouraged as a board. Are we going to open? Are we not going to open? Should we open? Are we being irresponsible? And then we got pictures of the kindergarten bus run and said, okay, we're opening.
Yeah.
Because when you see the joy that kids are experiencing being back in school, even weird school, you know, it really like, okay, yeah, we could do this. We'll make it work.
Yeah,
So-
that was a turning point for me too, emotionally. It really was, because you miss those kids, and that's why you went into education, because of those kids.
Right.
And it's funny to think about a kindergartner, they don't know anything different. This is school, you know? It's amazing, yeah.
Right.
I think that day also that day also was a great turning point, because it was one of the first times we had an opportunity to talk with parents face to face and see their, their appreciation and their desire to have their students back in the building. And it was an amazing time, not only for the kids, but for the parents as well. And that really hit home for us.
Right. And then the only other question I had, because I'm so impressed, how are you managing mass breaks once an hour? Are they in the classroom, or do they go out, step outside?
It's all of that. Teachers are managing it. They can have a quick mask break because the children are socially distant in the classroom. But they do go into the large cafeteria, the gym, and with this weather, they're outside in many different areas. Yep.
So my question is about kindergarten, because registration was so skewed, we didn't know what our numbers were going to be. it is a little higher than we expected when we were looking at this in February. 110, we were looking closer to be 100. But my primary question is, also, since you didn't do screening in May as you usually do, you don't know what the challenges are until just before school starts. I'm wondering if you can characterize the incoming class in kind of general terms.
I would say so far, so great. That's what I would say. We did have a very good idea of who would need to be in the collaborative class as far as special ed concerns were, or question marks. And then, of course, the rest of that class is general ed students who we didn't know much about at all. But one thing we did do, we had kindergarten registration. And then from there, we were able to email the entire kindergarten class to have parents fill out a form, just their own reflections on their child. Do they have separation anxiety? Do they read books yet? All of those questions. And so we had a little bit of knowledge of that. How do they handle transitions? And we did use that information to help place students. So really, I would say, maybe we were lucky, but so far the placement seems to be quite in line with what we might have ended up with anyway.
Dr. Luft, can our next presentation by Alex Goffman be in Mandarin? Can we ask him to?
I'll have to find out how much attention he's paying to the Mandarin versus the technology, but I'll have to get back to you on that.
But that's great that he's reached out to make sure that he's taken an ownership to make sure that that's happened. So thank you to him.
So I just want to quickly recognize Dr. Podesta, Mr. Chicory, in a year when nothing is typical. It's amazing at what they've been able to accomplish, and I know they're quick to give credit to their colleagues, office staff, support staff, and teaching staff, and that's certainly all well-deserved. But for anyone who's ever been around an elementary school principal when it's time to start doing class rosters, which is typically started in the spring, remember, we were waiting for survey results, and it was the end of August, and I think Margaret every day was like, can I do it now? Can I do it now? Can I do it now? So to be able to put together class rosters, to make decisions about split schedules, split sections, place distance learners, and to do all the things was really an amazing feat that they were able to accomplish in an extremely short period of time and get that information out to the teachers. So I do want to definitely commend those efforts on behalf of our two building administrators. And also, I know they had mentioned, and I know this is a real struggle, we are asking our teachers to do the impossible, to simultaneously educate students in person and remote. There's a reason why that's not how education works. So I do want to recognize their efforts. They're doing an amazing job. I've received nothing but extremely positive feedback from all parents, both in person and remote only parents. So I know we'll continue to get better. Obviously, our goal is to continue to find ways to support our teachers, but it's really been an impressive task. And as I mentioned before, I think across all measures, we are exceeding expectations in many ways. We are the envy of neighboring school districts, and I think the report we heard tonight and the ones we'll hear next board meeting speak to the reasons why those sentiments exist. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Actually, so before you walk away, I'm going to put you guys on the spot. So before the public comment, I took a sneak peek, so I know what one of the public comment or questions was, and it pertains to elementary school. So I'll give you guys a chance right now. So the question was, I guess, sort of twofold. It speaks to, one, sort of explaining the role of the teaching assistant and the teacher in the split sections. I guess the concern was that the teacher assistant was being asked to teach content. And then the second part of the question relates to the class sizes in fourth grade.
So the split classes are designed so that they can, as we said, socially distance these children and have them in school. The teaching assistant is not, and we've worked with Ms. Mistretta and had meetings about this together to communicate very clearly. The teaching assistant is not planning lessons and not introducing new content to the students. That's not her role. She can't legally do that. These teaching assistants are strong TAs for sure, and they know children at this age level. They are working to help manage the classroom, to review the instruction that's been given, maybe to go over homework while the teacher is with the other half of the class introducing the new content for the day. So that's very clear, and that's being done very well. And just like when you work with any colleague, the teacher and teaching assistant are kind of working out their partnership, what works in the schedule in the day, while the teacher is making sure that the teacher's teaching, the teacher's introducing the new content, and doing the assessing and planning the lessons based on how the kids are doing. The size of the class is working. There are no remote students in these split classes. So you may have a classroom of 14 and another classroom of 13, and you're going back and forth between these classes, but you have a skilled teaching assistant that you're working with. You have planning time together every day. You're able to talk about the students and plan the lessons that the teacher will teach and the TA will reinforce. So this is altogether a typical fourth grade class. Some of our classes are as small as 20, but we have had fourth grade classes this size, and some of them go out to Achieve during the day or AIS during the day, but so far so good. And I'm proud of the work that they're doing.
Thank you. So we just received another question. I'll read it, and then I can answer, but I wanted to give you guys the opportunity to jump in. So this question has to do with a student who's remote only now, and I guess they were informed that if their fourth grader were to return to school, assuming in January when that period is over, that they were informed that they would be put into another class. So.
Well, we don't know what's happening in January yet. We do have classrooms, as you said. If a student came back, they wouldn't be able to go in that class today because we can't legally overcrowd these classes. But coming back in January, we're not sure what the layout will be, so I can't answer that yet.
Right. So I could speak to the fact that certainly the expectation is not that we're just going to move students to other classes. If when students return in January, we're going to have to come up with a whole new instructional plan. And depending upon the number of students that return, we're going to have to decide, is there other large group or gathering spaces in the building that we could turn into classrooms? Do we need to split more sections, or do we have to move to a hybrid model? I mean, the reason why the middle school and the high school is on a hybrid model is because we can't house that number of kids in the building. I know nobody wants to have their children in 5 days a week in the first semester and then every other day in the second semester. But until we know really the numbers of remote students who would like to return to school, and obviously we have no idea what's going to happen in terms of the spread of the virus throughout the fall, so it would be premature to ask parents to make that commitment now. But certainly there is much that we need to figure out before that opportunity. But I'm not sure where this information came from, but I certainly would not assume that your child would be moved into a different classroom. That classroom may be physically moved, that classroom may be split into two different sections, but I wouldn't expect the child to be all of a sudden assigned to a different teacher.
There have been very unique and few and far between situations where a parent of a remote student has called at a certain grade level in a certain classroom saying, I know I made a commitment till January, can my student come back now? Because it's working for students, right? And we're so far very healthy and safe. And there has been at least one situation where I said, if they came back, it couldn't be in that classroom. And that parent actually chose to go to a different teacher. So there could be word of mouth that way.
Right. I think this question is specific to January, but I understand what you're saying is if a student opts to come back and there's a reason why we believe the student is better served in district, that there may not be a physical seat in that classroom for the child and they may be pushed into another section. But when it comes to January and the possibility of a large influx of students, we would need more of a systemic plan across all sections to figure out how to accommodate those students. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Dr. Love, can I just address from a 10-year board perspective the class size question about fourth grade? Because I know that that's kind of come up in terms of the split. And I mean, there was a time that 27, 28 children in a fourth grade class was not unheard of. when we had much larger grade levels. And then one of the big pushes about all-day kindergarten, and that's only about 7 or 8 years ago now, about 8 years, seems like forever, but it's about 8 years ago, was if we up front, we can tolerate larger classes at those grades. So the fluctuation of attendance, I mean, look what the second grade is going to look like in 2 years. They are not going to have 27 and 28 in their fourth grade. But educationally, it's not unheard of, and we have the systems in place to support that.
Yeah, there were a couple of factors that led to that. One, the district was staring at a 20% reduction in state aid, so millions of dollars, and we needed to find areas to make cuts. It wasn't cuts that we wanted to make. We had the opportunity to eliminate a position through attrition, and that was ultimately the decision was made to eliminate that position from fourth grade. We knew we were going to have larger class sizes. I believe at that time it was about 26 students per classroom, and then a pandemic hit, and then there was an influx of young families moving into Putnam Valley, and the next thing you know, those class sizes moved from 26 to 28 in some fourth grade classes. But we have highly skilled and capable teachers in that grade level, and I have every bit of confidence that they are handling those number of students with the utmost respect for their education.
We keep saying variations of, this is a good, bad plan. Nobody wants to be teaching the way we're teaching now. And we still have to maintain fiscal responsibility, particularly when we don't know what the economy is going to bring us in terms of fiscal. I know I've had parents ask, why don't you have one teacher doing the remote students only? Well, that's an additional 5 teachers, which is an additional large amount of money. So it's a good, bad plan. Like, it's not the ideal.
Those classrooms in other schools, all remote, there's no parts installed.
Right.
So that's a problem.
Right. Well, good job with what we got to work with.
But it does, the question does force us to be ready, and obviously we need this going to happen or might happen come January, since that's kind of the commitment window that we looked at. It's a reshuffle all over again. Even if everything's exactly as it is now, it's a reshuffle, and who knows what it's going to be like in 3 months. But definitely as we get closer and closer, there'll be more and more work to figure out. I mean, the downside, I think the ultimate downside would be really a shame if we had to start going with a hybrid model. But it's, that's the numbers, it's a numbers game.
We're just hoping we're still open in January.
Yeah, we're prepared to essentially treat this school year almost as 2 separate school years, and it may come to that. We obviously want to avoid that, but depending upon the number of students we have, we're going to have to make building-wide changes in terms of locations or classrooms, at split sections, and possibly rotations based upon the number of students who come back. But we can only plan. We won't know that answer until we're closer to that time, and parents have enough information to make that determination.
Come January, we'll have a wellness center that has a lot of space, and it might be the 4th and 5th grade, in the wellness center.
In the spring, it was very frustrating making plans 2 weeks at a time when we got the governor, but I think that's about all we could do. I think we need to really take it in chunks.
Feels more like 2 minutes at a time right about now.
Sometimes. So I just want to add, Trustee Yetter, Mrs. Yetter was not able to make it today. She had a family conflict, but she's supporting us from afar, and she sent me an email stating that she doesn't think we as a board publicly congratulated Dr. Podesta on her receiving her doctorate at a meeting. So we're doing that now, so.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. And thank you, Mrs. Yetter, for keeping us on task.
I'm not at the microphone, but I want to thank the Putnam Valley Board of Education for your support in that doctorate. Thank you very much.
So Mrs. Yetter is one of the 17 that are watching.
Barbara Parmalee is one of them.
Okay, so
So we have 15 watching
15
and
people.
2 board members. Okay,
I
thank
value
very
you
much.
15 very much. Thank you for watching.
And thank you again, Dr. Podesta, really. Congratulations and thank you. Dr. Luft, it is time for your superintendent's report.
It's only 9:17.
All right, so I promise to go as quick as possible. So prior to this meeting, we actually held a recap, we didn't hold a recap, this is a recap. We held a check-in meeting of our reentry task force. So the reentry task force is the group that met throughout the summer that really is responsible helping to drive what our plan was to reopen schools. And we thought it was important to provide everyone an opportunity to sort of check in and see how things were going. So I thought it was a really productive meeting. We went through each of our subcommittee topics. And I think overall, people are thrilled with how successful our planning over the summer has been in terms of allowing us to open and keep our schools open. We talked a lot about how much we've learned since school opened and changes that we've made and how we continue to make changes to find ways to make this sustainable for all. Just a quick update on the schools and our status. So as we had mentioned before, we've remained sort of virus-free to date, but we are certainly always prepared for when that phone call comes, and we certainly expect that it will one day. But we, in the meantime, continue to prepare. We're learning from our neighboring districts, and again, adjusting and revising our procedures to keep everyone within our schools as protected as possible. Regent Wills made Putnam Valley her first official visit for a public school. When she came to visit our
She's
schools,
biased.
she told me that she wanted to witness all of the amazing things that were happening in our schools. She had an opportunity to visit all 3 buildings, meet with the principals and some teachers. Of course, she was responsible and socially distant and wearing a mask throughout. But again, she wrote, at the end of it, she wrote a very complimentary email sort of sharing some of the highlights of what she had seen and left extremely impressed. And I know she's been sharing what she saw in Putnam Valley with other districts and obviously representatives in Albany. Our work on the Anti-Racism Committee continues. This has been led by Jeanette Mistretta, and now Lauren Soprano, as part of her district internship, is facilitating that work as well. I know a letter went out to the school community, and that work continues as we work to create building level teams. Continue to meet with area superintendents, sharing again contact tracing, procedures, best practices, and again, everyone is very impressed with what we have going on here in Putnam Valley. I want to recognize a student. Liana Diodati was named by NYSSMA All-State Chorus. She was selected as a soprano to represent PVHS in the 2020 NYSSMA All-State Treble Chorus in December. She's only the 2nd female soprano from PVHS to achieve this statewide distinction. So congratulations to Ms. Diodati. And then we had a couple of topics that we wanted to discuss this evening. Well, actually, before I do that, I do have a couple of public service announcements. I think we covered both of these already. I did want to publicly thank the Putnam Valley Education Foundation, one, for donating the masks or face coverings for our athletes, and I know some will be available for sale as well, and for supporting our Mandarin program. I know their grant cycle was thrown off by COVID. They've missed a bunch of their big fundraisers. I know they're trying very hard to get some new fundraisers out there, ones that recognize the need for to remain socially distant and follow other public health protocols. But they're doing their best. They want to continue to raise money, so they want to be able to offer a full grant cycle again this school year. And I did want to recognize PTA has a Spirit Wear sale going on. So the topics of conversation that
I wanted just to raise for the board for our discussion is the first one, we received a proposal from the high school to run a virtual performance of the fall drama. Now, just to recap, the funding for the fall drama was cut from the budget as we were facing the deficit leading into this school year's budget. So what was proposed has been a lower cost version that's built or designed to be done all virtually, so the students will not have to be in person. It's titled Looking Back at the Path Ahead, a celebration of 20 years of PVHS fall dramas. And then it goes on. So I know that this money was originally reduced from the budget, but there are some savings in terms of clubs that will not be running due to the fact that they would have to run virtually, and some clubs run better than others in that context. So I wanted just to provide this opportunity for the board to have some discussion as to whether or not reinstating the fall drama as proposed, or looking for amendments to the proposal, or sticking to the reduction of the fall drama from the school budget for this year.
Anybody want to start?
Well, I think, I'm sorry, Guy, go ahead.
Just, the first thing, we all have to realize it's virtual. And we want to make sure that the whole community knows that it is available virtual. You know, the virtual, we will be saving money in the sense that there's no backdrop, you know, it's just basically people talking together. There'll be no scenery or anything else behind them. So that is a positive thing for the whole community as long as we let them know. And we always have the option of charging a couple of dollars to sign in if we want to make up the money. So given the pandemic and everything that's going on, a virtual concert like this would be a positive for the community. So I do support it.
Do you have something?
Well, and if we're going to continue, if we're spending money in athletics, I think, there are responsibilities to making opportunities for all types of continuing education in different ways. I don't know what the choruses and the bands are going to do for their concerts, etc. I know that they're still meeting, but I do think that there is a pretty significant group of students that athletics is not their thing, and even school's not their thing, but theater is their thing. And if based on a reduced budget and something that is nice and reflective, yet gives that opportunity, I think it's something that we should definitely consider allowing. Again, I don't know the final number that's built into that budget as far as it being the right number, but I think we need to figure out a way to create that outlet.
So one of the comments among emails or whatever have been, is there a way to do this within the structure of the school day? Free times, club, those kinds of things. Because it's not, one of our concerns has often been the fall drama or comedy, because it's been either one, really affects very, very, very few students in the long run. Will this be open up to the whole school? And are there ways to make sure that the whole school has that opportunity?
So it is, Dr. Massera did specify in the request that this would be open to anyone. There would not be any auditions or cuts, that any student who wanted to participate in this would be afforded the opportunity to. So it would be much more far-reaching than a typical fall drama would be, in the same capacity that we did for fall sports. We thought it was important for those who wanted to participate could. There was no cuts in any of the fall sports programs, which is part of the reason why our team sizes are so large. So this follows that same thinking in terms of being as inclusive as possible for all students.
And did I hear a $10,000 number is kind of what's been thrown out as being the cost? I spacing out when you said that, Dr. Leff?
Yeah, that's an all-in estimated cost is slightly under that.
And including stipends, materials, whatever we might need.
That even included our, I think, our rental for costumes, which will be ongoing anyway.
Correct.
So given that we made the original decision to eliminate the fall drama from our budget, but we also have clubs that are not running at this time, I'm going to turn my head to the far left and ask our financial guru, do the savings work? Like, it's not in the budget, so we really have to, it's almost a moving around expenditures. Is it something that we can handle with the other savings?
It's more of a matter of whether or not you're supporting it, because there are many expenditures in the budget this year that we're going to be facing that are unexpected. We still don't know about the aid situation, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it and tell you that I've heard positive or negative. It's on both sides of it, and you know, the fact of the matter is, if we do face that cut, it's going to be more than a fall drama that you're going to see getting cut. I don't know the feeling of what the benefit is overall for the kids, and that's a decision that you have to make. I do know that there's been one thing after the other that's causing more expenses, but then you heard Mr. Burrow tell you about the things that we were going to be able to save. On the other hand, you know, and if the transportation for athletics, for instance, was going to cost more, that perhaps we're going to save in other ways in his department. It's hard to say, you know, and I can't be, it's hard for me to be as objective as maybe you can in this situation, but I don't want to paint a rosy picture of how the expenditures are right now, because we still don't know what that mid-year cut could be for the district.
Well, then, I mean, this becomes a question of which do you want more, because the bigger piece of money is usually the musical. So, I mean, is there, you know, there's the possibility that we won't have a spring, and we won't have a spring musical. Is it a carrot for the idea of, well, if you are able to do this, and, you know, we still don't know what the state's going to do, we need to be flexible enough that not just the spring musical, but spring sports and all those things. I know that's verboten to say, but it could be a bigger deal. But my thinking is, if right now athletics is getting the opportunity to run, I think it would be unfair to a certain portion of our student base to not offer that creative outlet that is so important to them, just as important as field hockey or soccer would be to other parts of our community.
Okay.
Knowing that things could change in a second, and we find out that there's going to be another 10% or 20% cut, and that, you know, then the algebra changes all over the place for all kinds of things.
Okay. We have to tell you something now?
No, I mean,
I mean, I think it sounds, let's see, hold on, I'm getting comments.
just what were you looking at? The total budget, I just did the quick math. It's the budget for this performance compared to what was cut for what was originally anticipated. It's about 38% of the total cost
Okay.
that was cut.
For the fall.
Mm-hmm.
From the fall budget.
This is a decision that is very difficult. We don't know what is happening at the states. We've heard all sorts of estimates of how we might be cut at the states. The whole online virtual teaching, the total impact on our budgets and things along those lines versus this virtual play. As it was pointed out, this is important to certain students. This is a major activity in their lives. It could be significant for the community, but now you have to balance it off. Can we finance, quote-unquote, approximately $10,000 without hurting any other part of the district? And that is the overriding decision that has to be made.
And the idea that it needs to not be for 5 students.
Right.
You know, if we're talking, again, if I'm putting it in the same bucket or a similar bucket as athletics, there are upwards of 100 students that are involved in the 4 fall sports. Not that I expect 100 students to get involved in a one-act play or whatever the situation turns out to be. It can't be for 5 or 8 students, I don't think.
No.
So a couple questions with that. I think one big difference between field hockey versus, or sports versus the drama is in the, during our budget process, we made a decision. COVID's here we are, we can't afford it. And we eliminated from the budget, we didn't eliminate sports. We kept the spring musical to balance that need, but we did eliminate it. So that's one major difference. I mean, our thinking in April was we can't do it. We don't know what the spending is going to be. We can't do it. So that's the concern. And every word that is coming, I'm just directing it to the 15 people that are watching, every word that is coming in my mouth is difficult for me because I am always, whatever opportunities we can give to our kids, let us give to our kids. But we so are charged with the fiscal responsibility to our district, we can't not have this conversation when we decided to make this cut in the spring. Having said that, I'm not, completely against it at all, because we have saved other, probably to the tune, would you say, close to the tune of this money in other clubs, in terms of stipends and even actually other sports, because we're not running, well, we'll be running them later. I am getting feedback from board members, again, about how do we do, is there a way to incorporate it during their regular school day as an activity? I'm not sure if that saves money because we would still need somebody handling it or running it.
I don't know how, within our contractual responsibilities, we'd be able to facilitate this during the school day. Obviously, students would be available, but I don't think contractually it would be something that would be possible to run during, say, our community lunch.
So the final question I have is, what if we put it out and we get the 8 or 10 interested? Is it too late at that point? We've already started the stipend process. We've already rented things. How do we know we're going to have this be a worthwhile expense?
Well, I think we can have Dr. Massaro or Ms. Cummings survey the population as to interest and what and see, get a sense for involvement. And if that number is not large enough, then it's not large enough. Just like any other thing that we do.
Okay.
My gut says there's probably a lot of theater withdrawal for a good amount of our student population, not having been able to do anything during the spring, and having not been able to do anything over the summer for the most part. But and I just saw, and I meant to forward it, but I didn't. There was a lovely video and article in Low HUD about, I think it's Nanuet, and that they're doing Edgar Allan Poe kind of remote show. Now, Nanuet's a big performing arts school, just like we like to be.
At our size.
And I'll forward that, and I encourage other folks to look at it as far as the social emotional well-being of a lot of our students for that. But I do think looking at what kind of interest we've got, it would be a big part of it.
Good. That's a good marching orders.
All right, so I'll go back to the building and I'll speak with all involved and to get a sense of the number of participants that we would anticipate being part of that show.
Okay.
So the second item that I wanted to open up for board discussion is I made the recommendation on behalf of the high school to waive the community service hour requirements for our high school seniors. In the midst of a pandemic, there are certainly concerns about what volunteer opportunities exist. If those are volunteer opportunities that students and parents are comfortable participating in the midst of the pandemic, and what our expectations are for students meeting what's a board policy related to graduation requirements for community service hours.
I was stuck in traffic today, so I spent a lot of time thinking about this. Anybody else want to start? So I want to thank you, Dr. Wolf, for sending us the breakdown. Obviously, just the numbers of, not by name, but the numbers of how many students have exceeded the 40 hours, how many are not there. The range ran from 0 to, I think, 975?
Something like that, yeah.
A remarkable number of hours from a couple of students on the other end. So just cutting to the chase, I'm kind of in the middle of not waiving it, but adjusting it. There are a number of students that have not had any, I think it's about 34 to 40 students that have 0 hours.
50.
Is it 50?
50.
Thank you very much. I don't count as well. So there are about 50 students, which is about a third of the class?
It's just over a third, yeah.
About a third of the class that don't have any hours. I think scrambling to get 40, they lost half a year last year. Scrambling to get 40 hours could put them at risk from taking some risky, just putting them in positions for exposure that is unsafe. So I would be more comfortable saying everybody needs to meet 10. Because it's a third of the class, do at least 10 hours, but then meet that with, can we provide some opportunities, like can a high school senior read to a third grade class virtually? Can we provide some fully virtual? Because I agree, I don't think it is prudent and safe to say, go out somewhere we can't control, or you can't control, that you believe you could be at risk just to meet a board requirement. That's irresponsible and unsafe. On the other hand, if you look at those students that have 200 and 300 and 400 hours, some of us that have gone into the fields went into it because we started doing community service. I think it is, we didn't put it in because we wanted to give seniors something else to do. We put it because it is a valuable, giving without getting anything in return is a gift. It's that is a luxury, because if you're in a Maslow hierarchy of need, sometimes that's what moves you over the left edge, giving and helping someone else. So I know they've lost a lot of time, but I'm reluctant to say, let it go. But I don't think it's realistic or responsible to say a third of the class has to figure out a way to get 40 hours in this year. So I guess that's where I'm at. It was a very long traffic.
So as far as numbers, it's 144, I think it's 144 students in the senior class. And about 70 of them, about half, don't have the required hours, with 50 of them not having any hours.
And some are real close. They're missing 3, they're missing 4.
Right. I do think if we are running athletics, they're going to school, these are seniors, they're driving, they are out with friends. I'm not thinking of the world as a super dangerous place for volunteer opportunities, because there are right now lots of volunteer opportunities and lots of volunteer interest in the world. The requirement was essentially only 10 hours a year, and which is the 40 for the full 4 years. And you could actually cheat by your 8th grade summer being part of it. Anyway, I do think that it's not a great idea to waive it. I don't know what the magic number should be. It shouldn't also be that difficult to get at least 20, because it's still many, many months. And even if you just did 1 hour a week or 1 hour every other week, you're set to get to a certain number. So I don't think at all that we should waive it. If we, and I'm not trying to tease, if we're in March and there are still 50 people that are missing, or, maybe that's an opportunity for us to revisit, but I don't think it's a good idea to not allow that opportunity. It can have the opportunity to change your perspective on the world, to be serving for getting nothing back other than the work itself, but it's a requirement for us, so there is a little bit more there than that. And I know I'm rambling, but I think it's really important that we not at this point in October look to knock that down, but look to reevaluate and really encourage those students to find something. Again, if you've got time to do athletics and you've got time to do those other things, you can find time to this other requirement, because you had homework. This is part of your homework because it is a graduation requirement for graduation.
So Mrs. Yetter is essentially supporting your decision, or your input, Ms. Farrar, in terms of, it's almost premature to make the decision now. We don't know what January will bring. We don't know what March will bring. I think our message should be, carry on as if there's going to be a requirement, but we'll revisit it in January. But on the other hand, I do think we need to give some safety warnings about the types of community service that people do.
Rarely do we put the opportunities in front of them that are dangerous for them. And if the guidelines that are out there, and what our guidelines are in school and what we're doing in athletics, it's very clear as to what is safe and what isn't safe.
Okay, right.
And I think also all the organizations that they would be supporting, Food Bank, et cetera, they all have the same exact regulations that we do. I think that there are plenty of opportunities. And yes, I think you're correct that we should try to be very upfront and forward-thinking and progressive thinking as to, here are some real opportunities, and work with those students, Mr. Mello or whoever else. I don't even know who's kind of in charge of volunteer stuff anymore. It used to be Sam. So whoever, I'm assuming it's Mr. Mello, but if it's not, whoever else is, really being kind of forward-looking and making those connections, or coming up with programs for them to do.
I think part of the issue that students are running into, or will run into, is I think many of these hours were done through sort of programs we had placed in-house, where high school seniors went to the middle school for the homework booster club, or high school seniors went to elementary school and supported the students in the play. And those type of visitations where we're not necessarily mixing cohorts, or would not be available for students that sort of maybe traditionally students use those same activities to accumulate many of their hours.
Right. Well, it seems that there's thoughts that it's a little too premature to make the decision now.
Guy, what do you think? Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, as you all have said, community service is very important to someone's development and understanding. We do, as we mentioned, there is a reduction in the number of opportunities, not only in the schools, but even outside the schools. Organizations that used to have people helping are right now just non-existing. So it's much harder. We can there's nothing wrong with the high school and the school sending out a memo or notice reminding people that community service is important, and try to find it. Don't use the word that it's not going to be required. Don't say it is required. And we just have to keep monitoring to see what is happening. What is the environment outside the district? What is the environment in the district to do community service? Yes, you can say, yes, In the old days, yes, you could help at a lower grade, help students with homework, but that is getting much harder, and also the safety of it. So the compromise would be, let us support it, just remind people that there is a community service obligation. And then come March, we review it, we see what the environment is. Did it change in January? Did it change in December? So, we can take a compromise.
And I think we have taken away, and I hate to use the word taken away, that's why I stumbled, we have taken away opportunities because they're just not able to be done right now. But maybe we have to, again, try to be creative, and maybe we talk to the student government and we do letter writing to troops. That's certainly community service, and they don't have to leave their house to do it. Videos. Those kinds of things. So nursing home videos, people can't visit a nursing home. Could you imagine what getting a nice little skit from, 2 or 3 seniors, even virtual? I remembered Dr. Podesta and all the videos that the schools did in the spring kept me going. So, maybe we can provide some other suggestions for community service that they wouldn't even have to leave the building, let alone if they are virtual.
And taking your suggestion one step forward, just making some DVDs of our past concerts even,
Right. Oh,
and
that's true.
sending them out to nursing homes, or our past plays.
And making copies of it, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, something as simple as that would be community service.
So, and I know we lost a lot of last year, even though we closed in March, we started worrying, and, if we listened to Mr. Spittle, he was ordering PPE in February, thinking it was coming. But maybe we need to revisit, are we giving them checkpoints, community service checkpoints throughout the 4 years? Theoretically, I think we had said you should do 10 a year. I was a procrastinator, among the best procrastinator in the world, still am to a large extent. So I probably would have waited until senior year. But if we can maybe do some checkpoints in the future, all bets are off this year, obviously. So that would just be another piece of information. Well, we have a lot to say about your report today, Dr. Loft.
Well, that's good. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, and you did a PTA public service announcement, correct, about Spirit Wear? Okay, and we addressed 3 of the questions that were all about class sizes, and no other questions? Okay, fine. So is there anything else from the public up here for now? So then let us go on to new business. And Ms. Ferraro, start us off with number 1.
Resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to appoint Maria Gemeta to a 4-year probationary term as a Spanish teacher commencing on October 1st, 2020 and terminating on September 30th, 2024 in the tenure area of languages other than English at the middle school on step 9 of the PVFT salary schedule. Ms. Gemeta is also approved for daily rate of pay of $430.27 for September 29th and 30th, 2020. Ms. Gemeta holds Spanish 7 through 12 permanent certification in order to be eligible for appointment to tenure. Said employee must receive at least 3 APPR ratings of effective or highly effective during the 4-year probationary term and may not receive an ineffective rating in the final year of probation.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Number 2.
Resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to accept the resignation for the purpose of retirement of elementary school teacher, I apologize, Teresa Hebaisen?
That was
Hebaisen.
pretty good.
Effective June 30th, 2021, as per document 56/21, attached to the agenda and official minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments? And I just want to say, the next couple of points are going to be similar, and retirements are never an easy word, because by the time people are ready and deserve to move on to their next stage, we still want them to stay with us and influence our children. So I know last year we had to do it virtually. We will, of course, celebrate all of these retirements in the spring somehow. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I like this back and forth thing. Mr. Farrar?
Resolve the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools to accept the resignation for the purpose of retirement of elementary school teacher Liza Hernandez, effective June 30th, 2021, as per document number 6721, attached to the agenda and official minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Number
Four.
Four.
Resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to accept the resignation for the purpose of retirement of middle school teacher Zoe Sousa, effective June 30th, 2021, as per document 68/21, attached to the agenda and official minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Number 5.
Resolve the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools to accept the resignation for the purpose of retirement of elementary school teacher Mick Coleman, effective January 5th, 2021, as per document number 8321, attached to the agenda and official minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Number 6.
Resolved on the recommendation of superintendent of schools to accept the resignation for the purpose of retirement of middle school teacher Jody Stein from the district, effective June 30th, 2021, as per document 8621, attached to the agenda and official minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments?
I just want to recognize collectively for the 5 of them, what a tremendous loss it'll be for a school district. I wish them only the best of luck in their retirement. There might be a little bit of envy in there, but certainly from an educational standpoint, they have served this district for many, many years and will be greatly missed by everyone. So, thank you.
And as a board member, we have heard a lot of these names be teacher leaders. So they are leaving people that they have trained and taught behind them. So that's my one little piece of comfort. And should we do the math? Is it more than 150 years of service to Putnam Valley or something insane?
I was going to throw out a number, but I didn't want to get in trouble for without having the actual number.
Okay, that's all right. We'll do that in the spring. We didn't do all in favor for Mrs. Stein. All in favor?
Aye.
Number 7.
Resolved to accept generous donation in the amount of $1,000 from the Hope for Youth Foundation to be used for the John C. Kleindigus Memorial Scholarship.
Second.
Questions or comments?
For those who don't know, this scholarship fund was set up in the district to honor one of our great principals. The Hope for Youth Foundation is run by the Witt family, and we thank them, the Hope for Youth Foundation, for supporting all the children in this community.
In so many ways, homework help, many, many, many ways. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, with gratitude, of course. Number 8.
Resolved to approve and authorize the superintendent of schools to enter into a supplemental memorandum of agreement with the Putnam Valley Federation of Teachers regarding a labor relation committee as per document 82/21, attached to the agenda and official minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments?
Dr. Luft or Jill, maybe you can tell me. This is essentially exclusively to deal with the issue of length of day and tied to our block schedules information, right?
Correct. So our intention was, this is really just an update of an MOA we had for last year. The original MOA specified that this work would be completed last year. That was obviously signed pre-pandemic. So with everything else that was going on, this sort of work got kicked down the road for a later date. So this is really just sort of capturing the fact that we still plan on continuing that work and just correcting the year to make it that it'll continue for the 2021 school year.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 9.
Resolved on the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the district's building level emergency safety plans for the 2020-2021 school year.
Second.
Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 10.
Resolved to approve the 2020-21 Board of Education district goals as per document 85/21 attached to the agenda and official minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments?
The only comment is, for those in the audience, I don't want to go through all of them. This was on previous agendas. We've discussed these on previous agendas.
And they are posted, correct?
Right, the presentation with the goals is posted on the website.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Number 1.
Resolved to approve the consent agenda, items 2 through 9, as presented to the board at this meeting.
Second.
Questions or comments?
Why does this happen? We're appointing middle school and high school activity treasurers, and with some stipends of approximately $2,000. Due to the COVID-19, many clubs and after-school activities are being canceled. This memorandum in this note approves other clubs and activities, and most of them have to do with music. We're approving agreements with the University of Albany for college-related courses, for Pagones and O'Neill, for students with special needs and strategic learning, for tutoring and homebound instruction for some of our students. We're approving, my system just crashed.
I think you
give
got
up.
most of them. I think volunteer
No,
coach.
we're approving, here we go, number 4. Approving special ed programs with the Clearwater School, Easter Seals, Hudson Valley, Carafin, Mount Pleasant, and Westchester County Department of Health for students who have special needs and services. We're approving 2 budget transfers of funds to pay for, 1 budget transfer of funds to pay for telephone service with Verizon. We're updating our substitute tutor list. We're approving additional hours for staff members to provide Wilson Reading Services instruction about 40 minutes a day for elementary school students. And we're appointing Anthony Riccardi as a volunteer boys soccer coach. We thank you, Mr. Anthony.
And I have 2 questions on these. I wonder if it doesn't have to be today, it doesn't be now, because I didn't pre-ask for it. Kind of looking at the budget transfer for the PPE expenditures that are in there, I think if we can at some point kind of get a running total of what anything that is
300,000.
COVID related can get to us.
300,000.
Say that again?
300,000.
To date with PPE.
Correct. Jill told me today. She must have known you were asking.
I'm surprised Jill didn't say $300,427.92, and she probably could,
Okay,
but it's not necessary.
that's a number I was not expecting. Okay.
Boy, I'm curious. Were you expecting higher or lower?
No, I was expecting lower than that. I was expecting lower than that, which then puts the fall remote play into a different light for me. It doesn't change my answer from before, but it does put it in a different light.
You'll never believe this, but in the midst of a global pandemic, the prices of PPE
I'm
go up.
That's not a surprise.
I'm shocked. Well, I mean, I know just my personal expenses have gone up in terms of, I spent a ridiculous amount of money on Lysol spray for my father's birthday present. A ridiculous amount of money.
Right, so I should probably clarify, and Jill, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not just solely PPE. It's
Right.
cleaning materials,
Right,
supplies, stuff of that sort.
COVID-related expenditures.
Aggregately, it's a lot of things added together. It's a lot of costs regarding what it's going to cost us for extra services for things that we're doing, not just supplies and materials.
And we're tracking it because we're going to be asking for, collectively, I guess all the school
We are-
districts are going to be wanting to, bubble that up to the state. So
I'm
they
going to write a
know what it
nice
is,
letter
right?
to both the governor and the president and ask him if we can get some of our money back.
Okay.
So maybe in 5 or 6 years, they'll
Lots of
decide
luck
to
with
give
that
us
one.
some of it back.
The COVID cap whatever that is going to be.
They'll call it something.
So then my second question is, the Albany University piece of this. I know that we take advantage of it for science research, and that's a primary piece. But in looking at the documentation, there were more programs that are included in the University of Albany program that we're part of. Are we taking advantage of that and getting, not just science research, but, again, I didn't open it, but I remember there were dozens and dozens of courses that are under the auspices of the University of Albany that, our students could take advantage of to get a leg up on their college career.
Right, so I don't want to say off the top of my head that we don't have any, but I can't necessarily think of any that stand out. I think part of the concern is being an IB school, we could only sort of stretch students that are taking those level courses so many ways. And I wouldn't want to start offering more SUNY Albany courses if it was going to pull students out of HL or SL IB courses. It's the same argument for AP.
Right.
We can't run a ton of AP courses and a ton of IB courses and have enough students to fill rosters in both. We end up just sort of splintering off kids, and we can end up with really small groups in two different classes as opposed to pushing them in one direction. So I know it's sort of the uniqueness of a school our size. If we were a huge district, we could run multiple advanced placement courses or advanced designation courses and allow students to choose. But because of our size, I think we have to be pretty focused on the direction in which we want students to go.
Well, however, some of them are pretty one-offs, which means they could a lot of them could probably just take the place of electives, especially in the arts, the School of Arts and Sciences section. So I wonder if, as part of the high school, as we're always looking for new topics, as part of the high school, and maybe it's not part of the opening, but they can talk about, as they're talking about IB, talk about what we are not taking advantage of or ideas of how we can take advantage of SUNY credit for lots of our students that go to lots of SUNY schools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can certainly look into it, and I'll talk to Dr. Inchuri about it. I think maybe one of the issues is like our IB diploma candidates have no electives. Like they have their schedule is essentially set for them every available period just to meet the prerequisites for the IB diploma. So we're still sort of taking a group of students off the top, but we're happy to look into it more and see if there's something that we think would be enough interest. Maybe replace an existing elective, but sort of up the rigor and make it something that's credit bearing.
Right, because you might find something that's not somebody who's not on an IB track, but might want to get some college credit.
All in favor part, right? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It was so long ago. We've been talking for 20 minutes. I actually wrote down all in favor, because I was afraid I would forget.
Sorry, I'm lonely.
Oh, goodness, I lost the agenda, but I know what happens now. You have upcoming
Meeting topics and
topics
presentations.
and alerts and
Yep, that's it.
whatever it's called.
So Spotlight.
Spotlight,
Forgot
there
already.
you go. Okay, thank you.
So we know for next board meeting, which I believe is the 22nd, we have both our middle school and high school giving their opening of schools presentations. I know in speaking to Dr. Doherty, there was some interest in presenting sort of an SEL counseling update in terms of where we were. We know that was a huge focus of our work over the summer. So at some point, whether the 22nd or a meeting afterwards, I would like to provide Dr. Doherty an opportunity to provide an update on that work so far this year. And is there any other topics from the board that we should get onto the schedule?
For the convention.
Right, the three things are on here. And I see that Maureen's already put on the high school college credit opportunities. She's right on top of that.
So we have to, we can do it at our next meeting, or we have to do it now?
The resolutions?
Yes.
No, that's the next meeting,
It has to be for the next meeting. right?
because then the conference
Is the
is
next week.
is the week
Yeah.
after.
Yep, okay.
And Barbara will be here at the next meeting, and she's the keeper of that at this point.
Yes, she is.
Better her than me.
Okay, I don't see any other emails, Ms. Bellino? Any public contribution? No. Okay, so at this point, I would just like a motion to adjourn the work business meeting of the Putnam Valley Education,
Second.
Board of Education. All in favor? Aye. Good night, everyone. Students, teachers, families, keep up the good work.
Stay healthy.